this fine, lovely Friday. How are you? How's it going? What's going on? How are we? Tired? I see. My. Yeah, it is a Friday the 13th. It is the first of a couple. Next month is also a Friday the 13th, if I am remembering and or knowing correctly. So, somebody has a club idea. Very nice. Very exciting. Fun. Not feeling great? I see. Yeah, well, hopefully this will be nice and relaxing, just like the past couple that we did for Heartsable. Hopefully it'll be fine. Hopefully the subtitle caption things will work fine. We'll see how it goes. I was testing them a little bit before, and they seem to be working okay, but God only knows that they'll probably stop working like 17 times. Knock on wood, it won't be, but we'll see how it goes. My. No, you're fine. Yeah, no, you're not that late either. I think we've only just started. You know how I tend to yap. My. But yeah, whoever is feeling sick, I hope you feel better. If anyone was having a bad day, hopefully the day gets better. And hopefully we have a lovely, exciting, and very, very calming Savanaclaw stream today. Now, I have no idea how far we're going to get into the novel, because I think it's the same size as Heartsable. I don't think it's that different, so it'll probably take us a little bit. But yeah, don't spoil anything from the novel, because that is the entire purpose of the stream, is to read the novel. So yeah, please don't spoil it. My. Don't think you're gonna get Bunny Juice. Are you getting Bunny Floyd instead? It's a tiny bit shorter than Heartsable. Oh, okay, perfect. So then maybe we could bang it out in like 2 streams. Who knows? Hello. Welcome in. How's it going? It looks the same on the outside. Maybe it's a little bit tinier. Actually, now that I'm looking at the two of them side by side, it's a little bit tinier. But not by much. It's not that much shorter. I'm gonna counter for the mistranslations and errors. Yeah, I was also told that there's a lot of mistranslations. I can't wait for Cater to randomly show up somewhere like he did in the Heartsable novel. I can't wait. It's gonna be such a fun time. Oh, my. Don't have gems or keys. I see. For either of the bunny boys. My. This is novel spoiler, Leona is there. How dare you, Cat? How dare you? Oh, man. Lily has 2 sentences. I know. Strange man with horns. Oh, I was flipping through it today, and there is, in fact, a picture of Malleus in here, and I thought I saw it because I was flipping really quickly, but then I couldn't find it. I spent like 10 minutes and I was like, where did it go? And then there's also one of Leona. And I was like, maybe I saw Leona and thought he was Malleus, because they are at a similar position. I was like, what? Like their heads are in the same place in the pages. It took me forever, and then I was flipping through it before, and I was like, oh my god, wait, that is Mal, and he is in the book, and he is here. There is a picture of him, and now I can't find it. Where did it go? He is here. We'll stumble upon him again at some point. He did. He gave me a jump scare because I was not expecting to see him in the Savanaclaw novel, and then he was there. The one thing that I do think is also different about this one, I think there's more illustrations. Because as I was flipping through, I was like, wow, wait a minute. There's a lot of illustrations in this one. We got a Leona, we have a Malleus, we obviously have the Disney Dreams, but then we have a Ruggy, then we have a Jack, then we have another Ruggy, we have a Cater, we have so many. There's so many. So they're quite fun. But it'll be exciting. It's gonna be exciting. I mean, I can show you all the pictures in the book, but I'm gonna have to like do them on Discord. I don't have a webcam. And I'm not using my mobile phone as like a device to do that with. Because otherwise I could just record the screen of the book and I wouldn't have to deal with the silly little caption thing. But I can take pictures of them and then share them in Discord. If folks would like that, probably after the stream while I'm not, you know, in the middle of reading the things. But I could. They're very pretty. A lot of them. A lot of them are very nice. Listen to the... No, it doesn't matter. If you already know book 1 and book 2, that's basically all the novels are. The novels are like an expanded book 1, book 2, book whatever. So if you already know Savanaclaw's story, there's no reason, I think, for you to read or have knowledge of the first one. The only thing is I think the U is different, but let me grab my Heartstable novel and just double check that. But I don't know how plot integral that's gonna be because the U's are different in the mangas too. So let me see. Yuya and Yuya. No, they're the same. They're the same U. They're the same U. Same U. Never mind. I thought they would be different, but they're not. No, it's the same. Yuya Kuroki. Yeah, it's same U. Same exact U. Also, yeah, the Heartstable one's like this tiniest smidgen bigger. It's like the tiniest smidgen. Let's see. It's got 378-ish pages. 380, 82. And then the Savanaclaw The Savanaclaw Nongle? Savanaclaw's got 340 and also has like 3 blank pages at the back, which I guess they had to do for the binding. But that's kind of weird. Or I guess if you want to take notes, maybe? But yeah, interesting, huh? Because Heartstable just has 1, I think, for the binding, and then Savanaclaw has 2, which is a little weird. But they're not that far off in terms of page count. And it is the same U, which is interesting. The U in book 2 on the manga is a girl. The U in this novel is the same. So the U from book 1 novel from Rose Red Tyrant is the same U present in the novel of Usurper from the Wilds. However, each manga arc has a different U. So the Heartstable U in the manga is different from the U in the Savanaclaw manga versus the Octavanel manga versus the Scarabia manga, etc., etc. So the U in the manga is a girl in the novel, but however, in the manga. In the novel, they're not. In the novel, at least according to this, because the U in the Heartstable novel is Yuya Kuroki, right? Yuya Kuroki. And then in, oh gosh, I'm already struggling with words. This is going to be a terrible time. The one in the Savanaclaw novel is also Yuya Kuroki. They're the same person, according to the little flippy bit from the, what is it called? Like the inside cover thing. So, it's the same U in the novels, different U's in the mangas. And then it's the same U in the game, technically, but however, that U can be anybody because it's supposed to be your self-insert. So, that is the difference. I have no idea what to do with Heartstable now. I have nowhere to put it on my tiny desk. All right, there we go. And then that's that. So I figured, obviously, since we're doing Savanaclaw, we have the Savanaclaw music. But what better place could there be to read in than a very poorly constructed part of Leona's bedroom? Because that is the reference photo I used. So I'm in Savanaclaw now, able to read the Savanaclaw manga. And so we're gonna put on those little subtitles in a second here. I just have to get the book open and prepared to actually read it. And then we'll be good to start chapter 1. Can you believe it? Oh, my. Yeah, new background. It is right. Alrighty, let me see. The book spine looks like a moth. Yeah. All right, let's see if the subtitles, are you working? Are you working? Yay, there they are. Perfect. All right, chapter 1 of Usurper from the Wilds. An old, derelict dorm stood quietly in a corner of the famed Arcane Academy Night Raven College. Surrounded by trees and set apart from the other buildings on campus, the structure was sunk in shadow on even the sunniest of days. A stagnant air hung over it. Broken down and falling apart, the dorm had clearly been neglected for quite some time. The exterior paint was faded and peeling, and holes dotted the rotting roof. Weeds had overtaken the yard, while the floors inside were so warped it was impossible to walk in a straight line across any of them. Most students and teachers steered well clear of it. "You!" a voice rang out in the cheerless garden, as if pushing back against the gloom. "Hurry it up, would ya? My arms are gonna give out on me." "Hang on a sec, I've almost got it," you replied in a quiet voice. "You gotta hold it steadier, Grim." "Whoa! You think you can order me around, henchhuman?" crowed Grim. Gosh, he's crowing now. Great. Good job, Grim. The dorm's current residents, the monster Grim and the human Yuya Kuroki, were Night Raven College's newest students and a bit of an oddity at the university. Yuya had been suddenly and mysteriously whisked away from his home world to this magic-filled place known as Twisted Wonderland. Yuya was an utterly average human with no magical abilities, and no one could understand why he was here or how to send him home. Grim, meanwhile, was a furry gray creature with a round face and a round body. Yep, nope. That's fully accurate. Dang, the translators got that 110% accurate. That is a literal translation right there. He vaguely resembled a weasel or a cat standing on two legs. He had magical abilities and the ambition to become one of the greatest mages who ever lived, though his impulsiveness often got him into trouble. Despite Yuya's lack of magic and Grim's volatile temperament, the two had managed to prove their mettle, and the school's head mage, Dyer Crowley, had allowed them to matriculate into the student body as one joint student, meaning that Yu was supposed to keep Grim in line while Grim performed the magical tasks Yuya could not. The two were hard at work repairing the storm shutters. Sweat beaded on their foreheads in the pleasant October breeze as Grim stood on a ladder holding the shutter in place while Yuya fastened the hinges. However, given that neither of them had ever fixed a storm shutter before, the work wasn't progressing smoothly. Over and over the shutter slipped down, and over they hoisted it back up until they finally managed to secure it in place just as three ghosts materialized through the wall and hovered before them. "Oh, a little crooked, ain't it?" needled one ghost. The three phantoms laughed as they cast critical eyes on the shutter Yuya had just fastened. The ghosts had made Ramshackle Dorm, as it was called, their home since before living memory. They were Yuya and Grim's upperclassmen, as it were. While they weren't scary ghosts, they were quite mischievous and showed up to tease Yuya and Grim in this fashion on a daily basis. "Is it?" Yuya asked, cocking his head and tapping the wooden shutter. "Well, it's close at any rate. I think it's fine." "Hopeless," said one of the ghosts as he shook his head sadly. "The kids these days don't even learn woodworking." "If you don't like it, go ahead and fix it yourselves," Grim growled as he tossed aside a paper carton containing the screws, his hackles fully raised. Grim the Mighty is done. The monster was not exactly known for his patience. Yuya was surprised at how long he'd lasted and at the real effort he had made to fix the shutters. With a wry smile, Yuya picked up the paper carton. Though it was afternoon, the weeds running rampant in the yard were still dewy, and he felt a chill in his fingertips as they brushed against the weeds. It was always cold at Ramshackle Dorm, as it was perpetually in shadow. How is it always in shadow? Who did this? Who enchanted the dorm to be perpetually in shadow? Is this why Malleus likes it? Who did this? How is that a thing? Anyway, yeah, there's no tree. I mean, we could be in the shadow of the college. However, like the way that the sun works is that I'm flabbergasted. Because if it rises on the one side of the college, you would have sun in the morning and then it would become shadow in the afternoon, or vice versa. And if the sun was going like from the front of the college to the back of the college, you would always have sun on Ramshackle because it's like to the left of the college or the right of the college, whatever. I don't know. I don't know. And just a singular cloud above it. Yeah, probably. It has its own little personal cloud. Yeah, probably. Anyway. As Yuya stared blandly at his dorm, he heard the sound of footsteps on wet grass behind him. He turned to find his classmates, Ace Trapola and Deuce Spade, walking toward them. Grim, quit slacking off, Ace yelled as he handed Yuya a bunch of screws. Yuya had asked Ace and Deuce to take care of repairs on the south side. Oh, we're on the north. Okay. The north side of buildings is usually more in shadow. That's fair. And they had apparently finished the task. Geez, Ace said. You can't let Grim off so easy. Makes me look like an idiot. I mean, I gave up my precious weekend to come help and all. Sorry, Yuya stammered an apology. He was actually helping until a minute ago. Just ignore him, Deuce told Yuya as he jabbed Ace with his elbow. Like you're one to talk. All you did was watch. I did pretty much all the work back there. He looked at the shutter Yuya and Grim had attached to the building out of the corner of his eye, probably bothered by the crookedness the ghost had noticed. You think it'll be okay like that? Yuya asked, and Deuce reached out to open and close the shutter a few times before retightening the screws on the hinges. He moved quickly, like the work was familiar. Once he was done, Yuya thought the shutter looked much closer to level. Wow, he exclaimed, you're good at this, Deuce. I might not be able to build a whole house, but I can handle this much at least, Deuce said as he patted his chest proudly. I used to do this kind of thing all the time at home. Just say the word if you run into trouble again. Okay, thanks, Yuya said, smiling. Ace raised a skeptical eyebrow. Only Deuce gets a thank you? Hello, I helped too, you know. Of course, I'm grateful to you too, Ace, Yuya said. Ramshackle Dorm still needed a lot of work, but he figured their efforts today helped bring it up to the bare minimum required to be livable. As Yuya thanked Ace and Deuce again, Grim stood neatly next to him and crossed his arms. You guys did good, Grim said with a satisfied nod. Now the wind won't be so loud and whoo whoo. I'm finally gonna sleep like a log tonight. Yuya stared at him in disbelief. I was about to say, doesn't Grim sleep like a log every night? And then Yuya, coming in hot, says, Grim, you slept like a log last night. And the night before, and every night, basically. How often had he looked enviously at Grim snoring away happily beside him? Whenever a strong wind blew, it pushed in through the gaps around the windows of Ramshackle Dorm and made shrill, whistling noises that sounded exactly like a person screaming. The nights were scary, and even every so often the dangling storm shutters abruptly slammed against the windows like they just remembered they were there. Each time, Yuya jumped in terror, very nearly hitting the ceiling. The ghost hummed as they frowned. But the screaming wind is what makes the place so tasteful and refined. Look, it's not supposed to be a haunted house, Ace said, exasperated. A normal person to run screaming in the other direction if they had to live like that. There was another major issue beside the noise. As autumn stretched on, Yuya had really started to feel the chill coming through the windows at night, and he worried that they'd freeze to death when the serious cold weather arrived. Gotta get it sorted before winter comes, Yuya had muttered at lunch one day. Overhearing this, Ace and Deuce had taken pity on him and offered to help, and at last, the storm shutter repair was finished. Sorry, guys, Yuya said as he noticed the deepening angle of the sun. It's finally the weekend, and I rope you into wasting your whole day on repairs. It's only natural for an honor student to help out a classmate in need, right? Deuce replied casually. Yuya couldn't help but think this was a very Deuce thing to say, given that he'd set his sights on becoming an honor student. He also knew that Deuce's main motivation for helping him lay elsewhere, which made Yuya smile. Sure enough, Deuce met Ace's eyes. He grinned and said, "And we're not working for free here, yeah?" Exactly, Ace said triumphantly. Don't think we forgot you promised to treat us at the bakery tomorrow. Oh, is tomorrow the day the bakery sets up shop here? One ghost asked. All three of the plump ghosts cried out in delight. Oh yeah, they got the good stuff. Can ghosts eat? Yuya asked himself. The chef at the cafeteria was a ghost, and Yuya wondered how he tasted what he was cooking. He had once asked Ace and Deuce, but they hadn't understood the answer. That's a really weird way to phrase that. Is that a mistranslation? He'd once asked Ace and Deuce, but hadn't. Oh, never mind. I didn't read it right. Yuya had once asked Ace and Deuce, but hadn't understood the answer. The answer coming from them. Okay, got it. That's actually fine. That's fine. My brain did not catch up with the words. We're good. We're good. Yep, Deuce said with a smile. The bakery from town comes up once a month, and the upperclassmen said all their food is super good. I was wanting to try it, so I thought, perfect timing. Oh, I'm gonna chow down too, Grim shouted excitedly. You're the one doing the buying, man, Ace said as he plucked Grim off the ground. The flailing monster kicked Deuce, and as Deuce yelled angrily, the ghosts laughed their usual staccato laughter. The mood was lively, and the place was full of energy that didn't match the ramshackle dorm's nickname. The thought had occurred to Yuya before, but looking at the building now, he felt like the dorm gained more spirit with every passing day. With its new residents, it's almost like the structure itself was breathing with renewed life. He felt like the dorm was even welcoming him and Grim. Nonetheless, despite everyone's good cheer, Yuya didn't laugh as readily as his friends. He stood absently at the smallest of the ghosts came up to him. What's up? The small ghost asked. You look kinda blue. Oh, yeah, I'm fine. It's nothing, Yuya said, his hesitant words trailing off into a sigh. I was just thinking how tomorrow's the start of another week. When Ace saw the look on Yuya's face, he nodded as if he understood. Oh, okay, I get it, Ace said. You don't want to go back to school, so you're already getting bummed out about it, huh? More or less, Yuya sighed again. I hear that. Dang, Grim said, and shook his know-it-all head. I ain't too in love with those stupid classes, neither. It's not class, though, yeah? Ace said. It's 'cause a bunch of dudes you don't even know are gonna go after you again. You nodded listlessly. It had been a month since Yuya and Grim were admitted to Night Raven College, the prestigious arcane academy located in the world known as Twisted Wonderland. He'd expected to settle into his new life with the passage of time as things quieted down, but because of the recent episode with Riddle, his life had instead grown more chaotic. Was there a soul at Night Raven College who hadn't heard the rumors about Yuya? It seemed like everyone was still talking about what happened. Up to then, Hartslevel Housewarden Riddle Rosehearts had ruled Hartslevel Dorm with an iron fist and strict rules. Everyone assumed his tyranny would continue until he moved off campus during his 4th year. But then, Riddle had grossly misused his magic while deranged and overblotted. Blot accumulates as the price for using magic, and when blot overflows, a phenomenon known as overblot occurs, which can endanger the sorcerer's life. Riddle had become so enraged when the Hartslevel Dorm students had pushed back against his authority. His overuse of magic, coupled with his poor mental state, had resulted in his overblotting, causing an enormous destructive monster to materialize, which then started wreaking havoc on the Hartslevel Garden. It is rare, however, for enough of this sediment to build up in the body to reach the level of overblotting. Even in the magic-filled world of Twisted Wonderland, the phenomenon was almost unheard of. Are we sure about that? Are we sure about that? I'm pretty sure there's an entire organization that has a whole bunch of overblooded people. Just, you know, just chilling down there. My oh my. Anyway, rare, huh? Rare. That had occurred at a legendary arcane academy was unprecedented. Are we sure about that? Because boy, do I have some news for you. Boy, do I have some news for you. Riddle had survived the event, but was now forced to face hard truths about his actions as house wardens. This incident had largely involved Hartslevel dorm students, yet another dorm had also been caught up in it, the newly created Ramshackle dorm. Its members numbered only two, Yuya Kuroki, a human from another world who couldn't use magic, and the magical creature, Grim. They were both first-year students who had been admitted to the academy by head mage Dyer Crowley himself. Though Yuya had not had a major part in directly confronting Riddle, his presence at the battle and the unusual circumstances of his admittance to the college had ignited a flurry of rumors presuming Yuya was an exceptional and potentially powerful first year, and the other students needed to watch out for. Yuya started to feel dizzy. I mean, I was hardly a part of the whole incident with Riddle, he said anxiously. I was only there tagging along with you guys, Ace. I'm not a special first-year student. The point is that it's partly true, Deuce said, looking troubled. I get asked about you all the time too, man, Ace said, grinning. And it's like, I can't say they got it all wrong or flat out deny it, you know? But you can deny it, Yuya protested. Lately, people have even been coming to our classroom to check me out. At first, I thought I was just imagining it, but I think it's probably because of the rumors. Well, I guess you hear a story like that and you're gonna be all like, how amazing is this first year anyway, yeah? Ace responded, shaking his head. Now that you mention it, I did see you talking with some guy from another class on Friday, Deuce mused. He blinked rapidly as though he had just remembered. I thought he was a friend of yours, but was he actually just a random student? Yuya nodded slowly. Yeah, he said. If you hadn't come along, Deuce, I probably would have keeled over on the spot. Okay, now you're being dramatic. Actually, you're not, are you? Deuce sighed. You would pass out. Yuya considered himself utterly average, but even he had one thing that set him apart from most other people. He loathed fighting. He could hardly look at two people arguing about a trivial dispute without becoming nervous. He would do pretty much anything to avoid a fight. Unfortunately, despite this, a significant number of the students at Night Raven College now viewed him as a potential new rival. The Arcane Academy students were very proud, and rumors of a special first-year student stirred their fighting spirit. This had resulted in a never-ending line of hostile people approaching Yuya. Each time a voice called out, you mumbled some sort of response before running away. So what? Grim said, wrinkling his little black nose. You got these guys coming around wanting to get all up in it? Well, I ain't letting anyone look down their nose at Ramshackle Dorm. Give me their names. I'll knock them into next week. I love a supportive little Grim. Love a supportive little Grim. Look at him go. Look at him trying to start fights. What a guy. What a pal. What a buddy. Don't do that, Yuya commanded. Well, you can't take it too seriously, Ace said, bursting out laughing, as if the image of Grim knocking anyone into next week was incredibly hilarious. He slapped Yuya on the back. People will start talking about you before you know it. You just gotta tough it out until they do. That's easy for you to say, Yuya murmured. Ace had a more significant part in facing down Riddle while he was caught in the berserker rage of Overblot and had battled him directly, but the rumors about Yuya had taken on a life of their own and drawn everyone's attention. Ace wasn't getting the same kind of negative attention, and he didn't have to deal with any of the hassles that Yu's infamy had drummed up. Perhaps Ace felt somewhat indebted to Yuya for this. "You are actually fitting in a lot more in class," he said consolingly. "Am I?" Yuya asked. "I feel like nothing's really changed." "No, the guys in class are definitely opening up to you more," Deuce chimed in. "Anyway, it's not good to dwell on things, okay?" Yuya knew Deuce was trying to cheer him up, but he couldn't shake the oppressive weight on his heart. Ace and Deuce looked at Yuya and his long face, then at each other, and shrugged. That night, Yu's sleep was light, and he rolled over a quiet murmuring of wind like the sound of flowing water. And then we have a spread that is Mufasa and Rafiki and Simba. What's Sarabi as well. They're going up on to the little jut out of Pride Rock. And then on the next page, we have all of them with Simba in the air, and then we can see Zazu's lovely butt as he flies towards Pride Rock. And that is the spread. And then that leads us into chapter 2. Huzzah! 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 Alright, chapter 2. A loud roar yanked Yuya out of sleep and into wakefulness. Upon opening his eyes, he realized he was looking at the patched floor of Ramshackle Dorm. "Meow, meow, meow," Grim muttered to himself. Yuya looked to his side and found Grim cozily asleep in the middle of the bed, having pushed Yuya to the edge. Grim's rounded stomach was facing up towards the ceiling, and Yuya realized the monster had just been talking in his sleep. Yuya had awakened from yet another strange dream, one of the extremely vivid visions he'd had occasionally since arriving in Twisted Wonderland. He pressed a hand to his pounding heart and slowly exhaled. He almost couldn't believe it had only been a dream. The vision was so intense and realistic. It had felt like he had really been in a grassland, sunlight shining through a gap in the clouds with the chirping and chattering of animals all around him. He could even feel the force of the wind blowing past his ears. Still dazed, he shook his head and checked the time. "Grim, wake up," he said, shaking the monster's shoulders. Perhaps the morning sun pouring in through the curtains was simply too bright for him, but Grim rolled over with a displeased "Wah!" and soon was talking in his sleep again. As Yuya watched him, he was overcome with the desire to go back to sleep as well. But he resisted the urge with a mental pep talk and wrapped his hands around Grim. He shifted the creature's limp, warm body to the floor to get him moving, and then he got out of bed himself. It was Monday morning. Another week was starting. Yeah, Grim's really not beating any of these cat allegations. You are entirely correct. Night Raven College had 5 first-year classes. The students were sorted into 7 primary dorms, not including the newly formed Ramshackle Dorm, based on the nature of the soul they possessed, but they were shuffled into classes essentially at random so that each class had roughly an equivalent number of students from each dorm, except that's not fully true, right? According to the game, they're all done by alphabetical order. So, like, what's it? Like, Silver is in the same class as Kaleem, but I think Kaleem and Silver are also in the same class as Azul, right? Like, aren't they sorted by name? I thought they were sorted by name. Maybe I'm wrong. Nah, I don't know. Because Silver doesn't have a last name, so he would automatically go up to the top of the list. And then the A's would follow, then the B's and the C's and the D's. And so on and so forth. So... yeah, but Cater's Diamond and Edia's Shroud, are they in the same class? I love that the subtitles translated Edia into idiot and now into India. we're never gonna get. I thought that they were by last name. I sincerely thought they were by last name. Because Malleus and Cater are in the same class, right? Or am I completely misremembering that? I don't know. I don't know. Maybe they are at random. Maybe they are. Who's to say? Maybe. I don't know. I don't know. Anyway. Yuya and Grim walked together towards their usual desks at the back of the classroom. Students were free to take whatever seat they wanted, and Yuya had settled into this spot since starting school. Ace and Deuce greeted them as they approached. Morning, you. And Grim, Ace said. Oh yeah, I guess they would have to be shuffled because Deuce is a spade and Ace is... No, S and T are so close in the alphabet. If Ace is T, P, elemental P, Q, R, S, T. S, T. Yeah, no, so it would make sense for them to be in the same class if they were done by last name. I don't know, man. I don't know. Good morning! Here's to another week of hard work, Deuce said. Ace and Deuce had chosen seats in front of you and Grim as their regular seats. Yuya said good morning as his eyes drifted towards another Heartstable student who had arrived with his friends. Morning, you, the boy said with a smile. Oh, morning, Yuya replied awkwardly. He nodded slightly before settling into his seat near the window. Ace turned around and set his elbows on Yuya's desk. How long before you stop jumping like a scared rabbit anytime anyone says hi to you? I'm not jumping, Yuya protested. I just don't know how to act. Ever since the Overblot incident with Riddle, Heartstable students talked to Yuya from time to time, like this boy. While students from other dorms felt hostile to him, Yuya knew Heartstable students were saying hi to be nice. That didn't mean he knew how he was supposed to act in return. Oh, come on, Ace said, laughing at the bewildered Yuya. You're not actually going to play like you're some meek little guy now, are you? It won't work, man. I mean, our entire dorm saw you yelling at the house warden to stop fighting. I didn't, though, Yuya said weakly. That's right, you here was getting all yelly. Grim proclaimed as he puffed his chest out proudly. Grim the Mighty was the one giving that little tyrant what's for. Maybe don't go calling our warden a tyrant, Deuce said with a frown. Dude, Ace said, shaking his head. I hate to say it since, you know, it's our dorm, but you can't deny that he is. The classroom was buzzing with the chatter of students when their homeroom teacher, Professor Carell, walked in, holding his teacher's pointer in his red leather-gloved hand. Puppies, he called. Sit down and quiet your pointless howling. The class instantly fell silent, and Carell narrowed his eyes, seemingly satisfied. Good boys. Man, hi, Carell. How's it going? How you doing? Hi, Carol. My goodness, man. So I feel like the subtitles probably are making this a little bit funnier than it is, with all of the random words it's deciding to use. Homeroom hadn't always begun so smoothly. Most new students at the academy were quite rebellious at first, and they made a big commotion at the start of class, even after the professor arrived. But over the past month, the first-year students had learned firsthand not to disobey Carell. Not a single student so much as dreamed of pushing back. Carell went over the students' duty shifts, changing class locations, and other basic information for the week. There were also messages from other teachers. I got word from Professor Train that some of you fell asleep in his animal linguistics class last week, he said. For the students in question, you know who you are, yes? I needn't spell it out. The number of students who subsequently hung their heads could have been counted on the fingers of both hands. Next to Yuya, Grim averted his eyes. So did Ace. You know, it is funny, though, because out of everybody, Grim is probably the only one that could fall asleep in that class and it be okay, because isn't Grim's specialty animal linguistics? Because Grim is kind of, you know, an animal. I feel like that's the case. I feel like. My. The diligent Deuce looked at a pair in exasperation, asking, why did you even come to Night Raven College if all you're gonna do is fall asleep in class? It's just that class is so boring, Grim shot back. Yuya was inclined to agree. Train's lectures were so long-winded and monotonous, they practically hypnotized students into falling asleep. Yeah, no, I had lectures like that in university, and man, is it hard. Man, especially if you're in a room, like one of my night classes was like that. So it's nighttime, the lectures are monotonous, and like almost all of the night classes for some reason were like 2 or 3 hours. So you have to sit there for 2 hours listening to this in nighttime. Oh man, it's hard. It's hard. Well, and I don't think Yuya can learn animal languages. I don't know if animal languages is a thing that you have to have magic for or not. I don't really know. It's never fully explained, but because it's curriculum at the Magic Academy, I always assumed that it was magic-based, but it could just be like a general curriculum thing like math. Where like everybody learns how to talk to cats and dogs, because that's kind of practical knowledge for this universe. I don't know. I don't know. I don't think we'll ever know. But nonetheless, the class was something of a blessing for Yuya, since all he had to do for now was sit and listen, which was precisely why this class was less popular with other students. When the class eventually moved on to practical applications, however, magic would be required, so Yuya wanted to make sure to study hard now so that later he could help his partner, Grim. It is quite the bother to have Professor Train turn his attention toward our class. He's a stubborn man and does not understand jokes, Corel continued. That's so funny. I know that he doesn't fully like him, right? Like, him and Professor Train have, like, a little bit of an antagonistic relationship because Corel used to be a student. but there's a certain level of professional decorum. You can't just say that in front of your students. I mean, I guess you can, because you're a Night Raven College professor. But he noticed some students giggling and cleared his throat. Thus, from now on, you will sit up straight and pay attention. Do not bring shame upon me by being poorly behaved little pups. Understood? He glared at the class. Understood, the students chorused. Finally, Corel continued, we have a message from Professor Vargas. Practice for the Spell Drive tournament begins today, so use of the sports field for club practices will be limited. Those of you who normally use the field, be warned. Professor Vargas will be contacting each dorm with the detailed schedule. The classroom immediately exploded in excited chatter. It's finally time for the Spell Drive tournament, huh? Deuce said as he slapped Ace on the shoulder. I figured it'd be coming up pretty quick here. Ace grinned in response. I can't wait, man, he said. I'd be even more psyched if I got picked for the team, though. You? Deuce arched a skeptical eyebrow. Forget it. You obviously don't stand a chance. You don't know that, Ace protested. I mean, it doesn't matter what year you're in. All that counts is how good you are. And dude, come on. I know you're secretly hoping you get picked too. As the two argued back and forth, Yuya whispered to Grim, Hey, what's Spell Drive? Grim shrugged, a blank look on his face, and said, I got no idea either. Their voices grew a bit too loud, and the entire class looked at Yuya and Grim in shock. Dude, you, Ace said tentatively. You've never heard of Spell Drive? Have we forgotten that we are from an entirely different universe? Have we conveniently forgotten that we don't live here? What? Ace of all people. This is also accurate to the game, but I think I also had this critique in game. Why would we know? Why would we know? Why? Yuya hummed with a frown. So, is it a game? It's a world-famous sport, Deuce replied, also surprised. There's even a pro league and world championship tournament. You've really never heard of it? Yuya racked his brain, but he really had no idea what they were talking about. However, with spell in the name, he guessed the sport used magic and only existed in Twisted Wonderland. He could have explained his lack of knowledge, but when he realized that the whole class was staring at him, he shrank back and his voice grew quieter. No, never, he said, hanging his head and setting off a whole new commotion among his classmates. Grim, perhaps feeling that he was a target of mockery too, stood up on his chair and proclaimed, "You can't know what you don't know! Jeez, you got a problem with that?" Yuya supposed Grim had been so focused on trying to gain entry into Night Raven College in the first place that he never paid any mind to the sport. "No one's saying it's a problem," said the Heartslable student who had greeted Yuya earlier. The other students from different dorms snorted with laughter. "Yeah, we're just surprised is all." "Right," one called out. "Yep, it's like you were living under a rock or something. I mean, everybody knows Spell Drive," another shouted. "Everybody was also at orientation and also saw that you couldn't go home because they're from another world. Why are we all so surprised? Why do we so often conveniently forget that we are not from this world and therefore do not know some of these basic things that are part of the culture for this world?" Why? I don't even feel like it's that plot relevant of a detail for them to be making fun of us, because it's another instance where we get Yuya's character of not wanting confrontation and not wanting to stand out and being very, very sad and like, and scared. But we already have so many of those moments, man. I don't know. They left before Crowley tried to send him back home. I don't know. I don't remember what the order of operations was, because I don't know. I don't remember. I don't remember. I feel like at this point they should know, though. I feel like at this point they should know. I don't know. I think I'm also a little bit too mouthy if I was in this situation, at least how I am now. I think if I was in this situation back in like high school me, I would be acting like Yuya probably, because it was also kind of very timid and very scared. But me now, oh, I'd be talking back to these little kiddos all the time. Ay. My. What? They magically forgot the insy-bitsy tiny detail. Yeah, probably. "So you are making fun," Grim snarled. "Be quiet, Grim! Down!" Cruel roared. "Apologies. It appears I was not sufficiently considerate of our newest students." He directed his pointer to the chalk resting on the ledge of the blackboard. It floated up into the air and began to sketch lines on the blackboard of a rectangular court with a large circle in the center of each of the short ends, which appeared to be goals. That's so cool! Cruel, you can do that? He can do that? He can magic the chalk to just draw things? That's so cool! "Someone tell us the rules of Spell Drive, briefly," Corel demanded. Everyone looked at everyone else. "Well then, Tripola," the teacher called out Ace by name, perhaps because he was sitting near Yuya. "Me?" Ace said with a frown. Then he explained quickly. A Spell Drive is a sport played by competing teams of 7. Basically, players battle for control of a disc and earn points by driving it into the enemy team's goal. The team with the most points wins. "Good," Kuril said. Yuya repeated Ace's explanation to himself as he looked at the board once more. He didn't know the game's details, but it seemed similar to soccer or American football in his home world. When he was in high school, his parents had suggested he join either sport. They were concerned he wasn't being social enough when he didn't join any clubs in high school. He refused because soccer and football, though games still felt like a form of fighting to him, and he was definitely not interested in that. His parents had laughed, half in exasperation, saying they guessed he might say that. However, when Yuya offered up his comparison of Spell Drive to the sports he knew, Kurel put a ponderous hand on his chin. Apologies, Cruel said. I've not heard of a sport called American football, and spell drive is quite different from soccer. Wait, what is soccer? Grim looked back and forth between Yuya and Cruel. Yuya suddenly understood how his classmates felt when he revealed his ignorance of spell drive. We'll never be done at this rate. Cruel pinched the space between his eyebrows with a sigh. Grim, have you explain soccer to you later. At the moment, we're discussing the major characteristics of spell drive. Deuce, continue. Deuce looked at Yuya and Grim before continuing, saying, Magic is the basis for spell drive. Not only do you move the disc with magic, but you use it to attack and defend, too. Huh, Grim grunted, his eyes shone. So it's all magic. Sounds pretty cool. Oh, that makes sense, Yuya said with a slow nod. That's why it's called spell drive. Exactly, Cruel agreed. Our academy is known throughout the world as a leader in the sport. Some of my classmates even went on to become professional players. Yuya remembered that Cruel had also been a graduate from Night Raven College. What? Who? Demanded a chorus of voices from the students at the front of the classroom. As Cruel named his former classmates, the other students got even more excited. Though none of the players meant anything to Yu, he was beginning to understand how popular spell drive was. And so our graduates are actively making their marks even in the arena of professional sport, Cruel said. And why is that? Because, as Deuce noted, spell drive pits magical ability against magical ability. The chalk drew a disc on the board with 2 stick figures on either side. I love that detail! He's drawing stick figures with magic. Oh, I love it. I love it. This is just yet another point for Cruel. Cruel continued. It is strictly against the rules to physically touch the disc, and thus players use magic to hold it aloft. But because the disc is constructed so that it absorbs magic, sophisticated techniques are required to keep it in the air. Controlling it becomes even more difficult when attempting to pass or score, meaning foolish puppies can scarcely manage to catch or release it. The chalk figures on the board began to move! He's animating them with magic! Correct! This is so cool! This is so fun! What a time! And the sight of the chalk figures coming to life in class never failed to surprise Yuya, no matter how many times he saw. This is so cool! I am there with Yuya. Man, I would absolutely be going wild over the animated stick figures. Wow. I hope we get this with the animation. I hope we get this in the anime. And that would be so fun. Oh, I hope they explain spell drive like this. Please, please. Oh, I'm so excited for season 2 now, just to see Cruel make stick figures on a chalkboard and then have them animated. Anyway, one stick person threw the disc from the end of the field towards the goal at the opposite end. The disc moved quickly at first, but gradually lost speed until it was snatched out of the air by another stick person's magic and started moving in a different direction. Yuya supposed this meant the disc had gotten too far from the thrower and their magic no longer reached it, or the disc had absorbed all the magic and the thrower had used, which allowed someone from the other team to steal it. If this was a sport where magic was everything, then it made sense a famed arcane academy would have a strong team. But this was apparently not the only reason why spell drive was so popular at Night Raven College. Alright, we're on page 29. I am getting exhausted by the constant repetition of facts we already know. And I don't know if that is because I've played the game and we're all familiar, but I don't remember the Heartstable novel being this beating you over the head by making you remember that you are in fact at an arcane academy and there is in fact magic at this arcane academy. By the way, did you know that spell drive is happening because we're at an arcane academy like Night Raven College? As if the magical chalk drawings weren't already informing us of the fact that this is a magical college, and as if the constant talk of Riddle's Overblot and all of the things that happened with that have not keyed us in yet. It's a little much. it's a little much. To me, anyway. To me, that's. It's a little interesting. The chalk slid across the blackboard thanks to Corell's magic, spelling out a Japanese character that read as magic to Yuya, even though the chalk's movement didn't follow the strokes for that character. It reminded Yuya that he was a stranger in this land. For him, some unexplained magic was automatically translating this world's language into his native language, Japanese. He remembered the moment when he had first arrived in Twisted Wonderland and had realized that his ears were hearing Japanese, but his mouth was forming different shapes and syllables than what he was expecting. Apparently speaking this world's language. Corell turned his pointer toward the classroom. However, magic is not the only requirement for spell drive, he continued. Physical fitness is obviously critical to outpace a speedy opponent or beat another player to the disc. Naturally, it goes without saying that one must have the brains to strategize a game plan. A leader who is unable to communicate orders accurately to a group of puppies unable to understand commands to begin with, well, that would be an unspeakably awful sight. The words, body, and mind were written on the board. Spell drive is a sport that requires a balance of intellect, physical stamina, and magic. Do you understand? Yuya and Grimm both answered yes, and Corell nodded, satisfied. It seemed like a difficult game, but it was the sort of challenge the students at Night Raven College clearly enjoyed. Ace happily told Yuya all about how proud they were at being a leading school in spell drive. The inter-dorm tournament at Night Raven College is like a sight to behold, okay? He gushed. You got these famous magical folks and pro league recruiters and special guests all showing up, and then there's these kiosks crammed together selling all kinds of stuff, so it's all busy and bumping like a festival. I know because they show it on TV, and it's broadcast all over the whole world. Hey guys, I know, you want to know how I know it? I saw it on TV. Man, oh man. Yeah, Yuya is Japanese. It was canon in the last novel too. The translation thing was also in the last novel as well, the Heartstable novel. It starts off with him being able to be like, oh shoot, I'm saying what I think I'm saying, but I'm not saying it physically. Like that line about him not being able to, or him hearing the language but not speaking it, even though he hears himself speaking it, that's also in the Heartstable novel. So yeah, so the novels are following the same Yu throughout his journey, and yeah, so the translation has always been there. Yeah, magic dubbing and subbing. This is the first time, though, that we've gotten the words specifically called out. So, like, the words also translate for you, which is wild. The language thing, you could just assume they had, like, a spell overarching the college because you have people coming from all these different countries. So for them all to understand each other, you could have some sort of translation spell. But the fact that it is also translating the written word is really wild. That is actually kind of cool. Oh yeah, the spell drive special, Deuce said, just as passionately as Ace. I used to watch that at home. Spell drive at other schools doesn't even begin to compare. So a school event is even broadcast on TV? You asked, stunned. Wow. What? Grimm was even more impressed. He had been thoroughly uninterested and casually swinging his legs the whole time Corell was explaining the rules. But the moment Ace and Deuce started talking about TV and special guests, his tail shot up. It's broadcast all over the world? So you're saying that if I were to play this tournament, the whole world would see it? Oh, Brooke being able to speak French. So, I think that Yu is a special case. I think that most folks in Twisted Wonderland speak some form of common. In a similar way to how D&D has a bunch of other languages, but common is the language that pretty much everybody speaks, so that way everybody can, talk to one another and get quests and do all of those sorts of things. I feel like a similar thing is happening in Twisted Wonderland. I don't know if it's ever talked about. I can't remember if the Heartstable novel ever talked about it, but that would explain why Rook is able to insert his French words. Because if he's talking in common most of the time and then just inserting French words, everyone would be able to understand the common that he's speaking, and then only French-speaking folks would understand the French parts. But that would explain why he has that sort of flair. I think you is a special case because I think you being brought from somewhere else, I think that spell had a bunch of layers. I think that had a bunch of layers to it, and one of those layers is probably this translation thing. Because it's just translating for him, because Kurel's chalk on the chalkboard drew the common word for what he was talking about. But it changed for Yuya's eyes. Because Yuya could see that the chalk was moving differently. So I have a feeling there's probably some sort of common language that they're all speaking, and that it's a you thing and not a universal spell over the college. You could excuse it as that when it's just the hearing, but I think because it's the writing as well, it's probably something a bit different. Well, yeah, it wouldn't be French, but like, okay, it's what is it? It's the land of floors talking. Listen, we gotta use the words that we have to make it make sense. We don't have it. We don't know what it's called there. So I'm gonna call it French because that's what it is here. But I could assume that would be a thing. I don't know if someone said there was a translation spell at NRC. I can't remember. It might be the case. It might be like that. I don't know. If it was, I feel like it came from Leona, but I don't have any way to say that for sure or know that for sure. It was in the novel. They did confirm that it was a translation spell. I honestly read that novel. I read the Heartstable novel so long ago. I don't remember. I have no idea. It could be that. It could just be that. And then that takes away some of the conspiratorial whimsy. But then we have no idea how Rook does his thing if it is that way. I don't know. If Yuya hinted at it, but we don't have confirmation, then we can't know for sure. If it was just Yuya inferring something, then we have no way to know if that's true. But if it was said by one of the other characters, then that would make it canon. But Grim is now very excited. Grim is very, very excited for Spell Drive. Huh? Well, yeah, I guess they would. I mean, if you were out there making great plays, Ace said. From the way he and Deuce were talking, Grim thought it sounded like a lot of people tuning in for the tournament broadcast, and a player who really shone on the field would no doubt quickly become famous. Grim put his paws on the desk and jumped up and down with glee. Yes! Grim cried, "It's settled then! I'm going to train around the clock and become a legend!" The class was so quiet you could hear a pin drop. Then everyone burst out laughing, some laughing so hard that tears were rolling down their faces. "Like anyone would let you on the field, Grim," laughed a student. "What the what?" the monster demanded. The students exploded in laughter again. "Think about it for maybe 2 seconds, you dodo." The other students were gasping for breath after laughing so hard. "Seriously, man?" another student panted. "Did you not hear the inter-dorm part of that?" "Oh, I thought they were going to be like, who's going to let a little monster on the field?" They're like, "Oh, you don't have a team. Haha." That's so dumb. That's so dumb. "A team's gotta have 7 people," another boy said. "But Ramshackle's only got you, and he can't even use magic. Cry all you want, but facts are facts." "Yeah," someone else said. "Your dorm doesn't have enough players. You're out. It's as simple as that. Doesn't matter if your plays are good or not." "You dare?" Grim snarled. "Listen, bub. I am a student at Night Raven College. I can be in the Interspell Drive tournament if I want, yeah? Yeah." He looked over at Kurel for help, but the teacher shook his head. "The numbers are what they are," Kurel said. "I understand how you must be feeling, but we can't change the rules for one student. You'll simply have to give up on spell drive this year and hope that more students in the next year's incoming class join your dorm. Ouch, 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 ouch. No fair! Grim was in full temper tantrum mode. Corell's stern expression making clear this really was the end of the line. I want to be on TV. I want everyone in the world fawning over me. Squee! Grim is so cool. Did you see that play Grim made? You get what I'm saying? He kicked and flailed on top of the linked desk so violently it startled Yuya. Grim, calm down, Yu said, attempting to stop his partner, but the monster ignored him. Ace and Deuce looked at Grim in exasperation. Your delusions are oddly specific, dude, Ace remarked. Kick and scream all you want, it won't change anything. And, it's actually wild you just assumed you'd be the star if you did get on the field. Classic Grim right there. Yeah, Deuce agreed. After all, he didn't even know the rules 5 seconds ago. Grim, did you not get that spell drive's seriously hard? I thought Professor Corell made that pretty clear. They were exactly right, and there was no doubt the rest of the class thought the same thing. Yuya could hear sneers and laughter from every corner. Grim let out a quiet groan, and Yuya immediately clamped a hand over over Grim's mouth. The last thing they needed was the monster spewing fire all over the classroom. He had his doubts about whether Ramshackle Dorm was considered equal to the other 7 dorms, but when it came to an official tournament like this, they didn't have much of a choice but to give up. Grim, I can't play the game that uses magic anyway, he said, trying to placate the monster. And even you would have a hard time being a team of 1. But, this is my chance to leap onto the world stage. Grim slumped over like he was melting into the desk. Oh, Grimmy, Grim. Grimmy Gram. Grimma. The shoulders of a student from Savanaclaw dorm shook with laughter. The ramshackle dorm of yours is nowhere close to being in the same league as our dorm. As if you ever had a hope of playing in the tournament. No way we're letting you drag us down with your idiocy when we finally get our big moment in the sun. Ha! Get a load of Savanaclaw, someone muttered. That's some big talk from the dorm that keeps losing. The mood in the classroom changed instantly. The Savanaclaw student stood up, face stern, his dorm armband clearly visible as his dormmates quickly turned with him. Hey, he demanded. What'd you say? Sorry, you heard that? I didn't mean to tell the truth there, the other student said with a laugh. He had yellowish green and black Diasomnia armband, as did the boys sitting in the seats around him. Oh no! Why is it called yellowish green? Why can't we just call it a neon green? It's neon green. Why for Dias? It is so green. It is not heightened. Anyway, he looked at the Savanaclaw student and rather deliberately cocked his head to one side. I'm just concerned, you know? Acting like you're all that when it's obvious we in Diasomnia are going to crush you again this year. You're gonna be so embarrassed later. Diasomnia for the win. The upperclassmen are worried too, you know, another Diasomnia student chimed in. I mean, you lost your first match 2 years in a row. You're a pale shadow of a team you used to be. I heard you might actually start losing dorm members over it. Come over here and say that! Growled the Savanaclaw student as he lunged at the Diasomnia group. How about we square off right here and right now? We'll see who's the best, shouted another Diasomnia student. Diasomnia for the win? Don't make me laugh. Your dorm only wins because Malleus Draconia and his power, that monster. The rest of y'all don't even do anything. Which is true. As far as we know, that is in fact true. In the face of the brawny Savanaclaw students shouting and threatening them, the Diasomnia students had been the picture of calm. However, at this statement, the looks on their faces changed. Monster? Why, you? Okay, that's what they got mad at. Sure. A Diasomnia student replied icily. You don't even have the guts to go and say that to our house warden's face. The students glared at each other, both sides growing angrier by the second. Somehow, Grimm's selfish grumblings had initiated a full-fledged fight. Yuya shrank him to himself nervously, while the other students sat back and watched, amused. Ace and Deuce also looked uninclined to step up and stop them, rolling their eyes as if to say, here they go again. Be quiet, Professor Carell's bellow cut through the unrest in the classroom. Quit your pointless howling over such petty nonsense. You are less than puppies. Oh! Can you imagine being called less than puppies by Carell? Oh my goodness, does that hit? Wow. Oh, that is such a high insult. My goodness, my gracious. The teacher's rage shocked the room into silence, and the students winced, bracing themselves for a harsh lecture. Luckily, the bell for first period rang at that moment. That's all for homeroom, Carell huffed. The entire class heaved a sigh of relief as a grumpy Carell left the room, and they hurried to get ready for class. Yuya felt the tension slide out of his shoulders. Saved by the bell, he whispered, grateful that the unbearable fighting was over. Grimm continued sulking as they walked to their first class and throughout all of their morning classes. He could just not accept that he wouldn't be allowed to play in the Spell Drive tournament. Hey, come on, cheer up already, Yuya said as they headed toward the cafeteria. He could see only the top of Grimm's head because the monster's deject ears were drooping and hiding his face. Grimm! Grimm! We have to get bread from that bakery for lunch today. You know, like we promised Ace and Deuce. They said it's super good. Uh-huh, Grimm groaned, head hanging. Guess I'll just have to drown my sorrows in food. I'm gonna eat every last bit of bread they have. When they arrived at the cafeteria, a crowd of people was already gathered around a table on the far side of the room. Today is a special day, a ghost flying high above the crowd shouted. That famous bakery from town, which we didn't want to name ever and is just called Famous Bakery from Town, is serving up their goods. It only happens once a month. Their stock sells out fast, so you better hurry. Ace and Deuce pulled up behind them, equally surprised at all the commotion. Whoa, dang, Ace cried. The whole world's already here. They're going to sell out in no time, Deuce said. We gotta get up there. Egg sandwiches are now sold out, one ghost announced. Only one of our famous deluxe ham and cheese sandwiches left. No! No, they kept the ham and cheese. Does this mean they also kept the hot dog bun? I'm gonna crash out all over again. Oh, man. Ay, ay, ay. An angry cry rang out as students shouted, Hey, I had that sandwich first. After you cut the line, keep it to yourself, jerk face, another student retorted. Yuya was not interested in joining the battle for sandwiches and pastries, so he handed the promising lunch money to Ace and Deuce, and then he lined up alone for his regular lunch. That line was much shorter than usual, and he placed his order in no time. Today's special was salmon cream stew. Yuya got seats for everyone and settled in to wait, his lunch steaming before him, but Grimm soon came bouncing along on excited feet. The monster was using both hands to carry several items wrapped in paper. He set them down on the table and picked up the one that was the largest. Meow, he cackled. Check it out, you. Guess who scored the last deluxe ham and cheese sandwich? This guy, the Great Grimm. Huh? Wow, Yuya was impressed. I heard people saying that's the most popular sandwich. I can't believe you got one. Ace and Deuce walked up behind Grimm, looking tired. Grimm jumped in and snatched it out of the hands of one of the upperclassmen, Deuce told Yuya. Hearing this, Yuya silently relieved Hearing this, Yuya was silently relieved that he hadn't gone with them. This loser here was in and out like a lightning strike, Ace said, glaring down at the triumphant Grim. So the guy thought I did it, even though I was just standing there. For a sec, I thought he was gonna murder me. He tried to steal a bunch of other stuff too, Deuce sighed. It really was a piece of... It was a real piece of work to hold him back. You okay? Yuya asked. Did you manage to get something for yourselves? Ace and Deuce smiled as they placed white paper packages on the table. Through the gaps in the paper, Yuya saw thick slices of roast beef and vivid green lettuce. There were also buns with cream spilling out of them and a baguette baked with cheese on top. They had come back with quite the haul. Even with that, though, they still had change to give back to Yuya, meaning the bakery was probably priced for students. He understood why the booth was so popular. My. Time for the grub. Ace plopped himself down across from Yuya and Deuce took the seat next to Ace. Thank you for the lunch, Deuce said. No, thank you for helping fix up Ramshackle Dorm, Yuya replied, as the pair cheerfully unwrapped their sandwiches. As for Grim, he was vibrating with happiness as he stared lovingly at the large prey he had taken down. He would normally have leapt onto it without a moment's hesitation, so he must have really been pleased with himself. The sandwich indeed deserved the title of deluxe. It was significantly larger than Ace's sandwich and wrapped in thin wax paper instead of the white paper packaging covering Ace's sandwich, perhaps because it didn't fit. The transparent paper revealed 2 slices of perfectly toasted bread and generous slices of ham and cheese, except it's supposed to be a ham cutlet. The pork cutlet's supposed to be katsu. It's a katsu sandwich. And if it was a katsu sandwich, it would make more sense as to how it's deluxe, because katsu cutlets are so much bigger than slices of ham. Why? Alright. Anyway. This deluxe ham and cheese sandwich is gonna be a party in my mouth, Grim declared. Deluxe ham and cheese sandwich, someone repeated from behind Yuya. Deuce's face grew pale. Curious, Yuya peered over his shoulder to find a skinny boy with large animal ears poking out of biscuit-colored hair. The boy regarded the surprised Yuya and the bewildered Deuce and tilted his ears forward. Oh, hey, whoa, the boy said. You're those reckless first years from that incident, right? And the roly-poly kitty The roly-poly kitty cat. That's not in the game, right? I don't remember that being in the game. This is so good. This is so peak. Hi, Ruggy. How's it going? Oh my, where even was that? Where am I? I completely lost my place. Okay, there we are. We meet again, huh? Huh? Who's this? Ace whispered. Is he from Savanaclaw? No clue, Grim said, grinning at his sandwich without a glance at the boy. How am I supposed to remember every stupid thing that happens? You really don't pull punches, I'm Ruggy Bucci, Savanaclaw, 2nd year. As the boy grinned at Ace, sharp teeth glinted in the light. Startled, Yuya managed a polite bow. How have you been? He asked. Ruggy was the Savanaclaw student Yuya and Deuce had met when they went to Mr. S's mystery shop to get ingredients for a chestnut tart a few weeks ago. Ruggy and the Savanaclaw dorm's house warden, Leona Kingscholar, had intervened when Deuce had started fighting with some Savanaclaw Oh, we're just not going to talk about the botanical garden? We're not going to talk about the botanical garden. We're just going to talk about the scrape. Sure. I mean, I suppose that was the incident of more note, but yeah, alright, fine, whatever, sure. Sure. And had kept the encounter from escalating to dangerous levels. You know him too, you? Ace asked. Yuya grunted a non-committal response. He figured Deuce wouldn't want this story told, since he was trying to hide his out-of-control side. Ruggy peered at the sandwich in front of Grim. That really is a deluxe ham and cheese. It really is a deluxe katsu sandwich. I can't believe you were able to get. I'm just gonna translate it myself. Screw this. I'm just gonna say what it is. The thing is, I really, really need to buy one of those sandwiches today. There's a fairly frightening fellow who's gonna be very mad at me if I don't. But my class ran long, and so I arrived as the lunch wore way too late. Ha! Sucks to be you. I got one though, Grim said, flaunting his sandwich. Grim, you chided. Ruggy waved a hand back and forth, narrowing his blue-gray eyes. No, it's all right. Looks good, huh? Grim teased. Bet you wish you had one. Go ahead and be as jealous as you want. Yeah, I sure do. And I have a proposition for you. Ruggy pulled something out of his uniform pocket. It was smaller than Yuya's fist, about a quarter of the size of the deluxe ham and cheese sandwich. Wait! Guys, they did it! They did it here! They didn't translate the katsu sandwich, but they did it! They did it! It's here! It's really here! Guys, I'm so excited! Guess what Ruggy has! You mind trading that sandwich for this mini onpon bun thing? They really put on. They did not translate it to hot dog bun. Thank God. Mini onpon bun. The subtitles don't understand. The subtitles don't understand. But it's the onpon. Oh man, onpon! Grim looked at the other boy dubiously. Ace and Deuce also cocked their heads. Now that Yuya thought about it, he couldn't remember seeing any Japanese food or snacks since arriving in Twisted Wonderland. All the snacks in the cafeteria and shop were like the American and British snacks he'd heard about. Yuya immediately became overcome with homesickness for those familiar flavors. The fact that Ruggy was holding an onpon at least meant that the item existed somewhere in this world. He heaved a sigh of relief. It's like a sweet roll, Yuya explained. It's got this red bean paste inside, kind of like a jelly donut. No, not the jelly donut! I mean, the comparison is way better than onigiri and donuts, but like... Oh, it knows what onigiri is, but it doesn't know what onpon is. All right, whatever you are. Subtitles, sure. Oh man, the jelly donut. Huh, Grim's nose twitched, his curiosity piqued. Then he quickly hugged his sandwich with both hands. Whatever that thing is, ain't no way I'm trading for a teeny-tiny bun. I figured you'd say that, Ace laughed. Deuce and Yuya laughed too. Pigs would fly before the gluttonous Grim traded a large sandwich for a small bun. Oh, come on now. Let's not be like that. Here, I insist, Ruggy said, holding out the onpon. And the unthinkable happened. Grim held out his deluxe ham and cheese sandwich for Ruggy. What? Yuya, Ace, and Deuce shouted in unison. Might be a storm coming tomorrow, Deuce muttered, and Yuya bopped his head in agreement. Grim looked even more surprised than his friends. His eyes flew open and he stared at his own paws in disbelief. Meh, he yelped. What in the name of tuna? My paws are moving on their own. Sounds like we have ourselves a deal. Oh, how does Ruggy laugh? He goes like, I don't know how to laugh like Ruggy. It's more like a and a sh at the same time, and I don't know how to do that. Ruggy plucked the sandwich from Grim's hands and set the onpon down in its place. What luck I found a kind soul willing to trade. You enjoy that onpon. It's so delicious you'll find you won't be dissatisfied even if it's small. Grim lunged forward to try to take his sandwich back, but the smiling Ruggy stepped nimbly aside to dodge the monster. Grim tumbled from his chair onto the floor. My deluxe ham and cheese sandwich, he shrieked. Give it back! It's mine now. Toodles, Ruggy said as he sauntered off. Stop! Grim tried to give chase, but Deuce was quick to restrain him as he glanced around. Look, Deuce commanded in a hushed tone. We're surrounded by Savanaclaw guys. Yuya looked up at the people gathered around and realized that every single one of them wore a yellow armband. Wow, we were cased hardcore. We were cased so hardcore. Oh my gosh. Ay, ay, ay. Dude, what did you want with Savanaclaw? Said one student. How about we hear what you gotta say, huh? Big, muscular student stood in front of them like a wall. Nah, man, it's nothing. We're all good, Ace stated, with flashing a smile. We were just messing around, just doing our own thing, right? Yuya nodded vigorously. So long as you get it, one of the Savanaclaw students said. By the time their group had dispersed, Ruggy was long gone. That jerk, Grim snarled. Where'd he go? Give it up, man, Ace said and shook his head. You can't take on that many Savanaclaw students all by yourself. You don't stand a chance against them. The dorms of Night Raven College each had their own particular personality. Savanaclaw's was sporty and the majority of its students were jocks. Ace had once told Yuya that the dorm was a gathering place for students who were fleet of foot, strong with stamina. The boys who had just confronted them were so huge and muscular, Yuya could hardly believe they were all about his age. Grim's chances against a group like that were vanishingly small. The monster wasn't even half their size, and the use of magic in personal fights was forbidden at Night Raven. We didn't want to say Night Raven College. It just says Night Raven. I can't remember if that's consistent with the last book or not. I don't know. I don't know. My magnificent deluxe ham and cheese for this teensy. Grim clambered onto the chair and stared at the small bun in a daze. He had squeezed it in his fall, causing the sweet bean paste in the middle to shoot out of the sides. If you're so miserable about it, you shouldn't have traded it in the first place, Yuya told him. I bet you were trying to come off all cool and it backfired on you, Ace said. I didn't! I wasn't! Grim shouted and slammed a paw down on the table. I didn't want to trade! It's like when he put out his hand, my paw just shot out. Like it was copying his. So you did just get carried away, Deuce sighed, exasperated. You can't go whining after the fact. I'm not... Unable to explain his actions, Grim lost his temper and hammered his paws against the table in frustrated protest. Simmer down, man, Ace said. With that whole switch the way it was, if you hadn't handed the sandwich over, he obviously would have taken it by force. Yuya shuddered and asked, where did those guys even come from? Maybe they just overheard the quarrel with Bucci, Deuce said, his brow furrowed. Or maybe they were in on it from the start. They got into position so fast, like they were used to fighting, Yuya remarked. I guess it's probably best to assume that wasn't a coincidence. I told you, you don't want to tangle with Savanaclaw, Ace said, lowering his voice. Some of those guys are beast folk, yeah? Plus, did you check the fangs on Ruggy? We might be the same size, but he gives off real dangerous carnivore vibes. A couple of dunces like Deuce and Grim go jump at him, they'll hunt you like small prey, and it'll be game over in no time flat. Don't lump me in with Grim, Deuce said huffily. But Grim couldn't hear him over the sound of his own whine. Yeah, no, that tracks for Grim. Yeah, no, that makes sense. What a kiddo, what a pal. You mean they're good at teamwork? Yuya asked, remembering something Ace had told him before. You said there were a lot of beast folk in Savanaclaw. Is that why? Yeah, Ace said, nodding. Although, there are humans like us in Savanaclaw, too. I think the biggest reason is basically the dorm style. They're way sportier than the other dorms, which is why they're skilled at spell drive, too. Oh, right, Yuya nodded slowly. They were talking about that in class this morning. Savanaclaw was a dorm based on the indomitable will of the King of Beasts, one of the Great Seven. Mages who were so powerful, Night Raven College had dedicated a dorm to each of them. The students were often physically strong to go with that mindset and took a great deal of pride in their dorm. Oh yeah, they said. They're regular tourney champs. A lot of their crew's been scouted at the tournament and gone pro afterwards. Yeah, Deuce said. But the winning dorm of the last 2 years was, yep, Ace said. Diasomnia. That's what the fighting was about this morning. Diasomnia's been the champion for the last 2 years. Which Deuce already said. Why? There's so much repetition. There's so much. Oh, Yuya said. No wonder they were fighting in homeroom. Right? Ace said. So the Savanaclaw guys are all on edge as it gets time for the Spell Drive tournament. Best thing to do is stay away from them right now. Diasomnia had become a force in Spell Drive in recent years, and Savanaclaw now viewed them as their enemies. Yuya vowed to stay away from both dorms until the tournament was over. Poor Yuya did not know, however, how things were going to go. The Spell Drive tournament, Grim gasped. When he heard those words, all his fury melted away, and he fell prone onto the table. First, I don't get to be in the Spell Drive tournament, and now the deluxe ham and cheese sandwich I was sweating blood for turned into this teeny bun. This is the worst day of my pathetic life. Grim's furry paws were damp with tears and snot. Yuya actually felt sorry for him, so he collected the remaining buns and pastries and set them in front of Grim. You've got all these other buns, though, he said, patting the monster's rounded back. They really... in this novel in particular, I don't remember the other novel, but in this one, it seems like they really want us to know just how pudgy Grim is. His rounded back could be because he's crying too, but they just keep using round words to describe Grim. Ay. My, oh my, oh my. They look tasty. You can get another deluxe sandwich next time. Let it go for today. Aw, this sucks, Grim says, and scarfed down a bagel from the pile in 3 bites before casting his eyes around the table. I'm never gonna fill my stomach with this. Hey, you! I'm taking that stew off your hands. Hey, no you don't, Yuya protested as he hurriedly yanked his plate up. Grim changed tactics and went after Deuce's sandwich. Not a chance, Deuce cried. Leave me out of this. Yikes! Better knock this back before Grim inhales it, Ace shouted as he shoved his sandwich into his mouth, hardly chewing, not sparing a moment to savor this special treat. Before they knew it, in a blink of an eye, their lunch break was over. And so too was Chapter 2. We are on to Chapter 3 now. Chapter 3. My oh my oh my. My oh my. The novel's been very fun so far. There's so much repetition. And I again can't quite tell if it's because I've played the game or if it's because they are just incessantly repeating things. But anyway, on to Chapter 3. Ruggy headed for the botanical garden, holding the deluxe ham and cheese sandwich. He'd succeeded in his quest, so for once he didn't need to drag his feet on the way back in order to think up an excuse. He simply slipped through the gates. The botanical garden was next to the alchemy workshop and mostly grew magical plants to be used in experiments. No matter how cold it was outside, the interior of the massive glass dome remained the same fixed temperature thanks to Magestone-powered climate control. Greenery and flowers of all kinds filled the space, and waterways were home to aquatic plants that could be observed from small bridges around the garden. Ruggy had never seen such a large greenhouse before he started classes at Night Raven. He recalled seeing the hobby gardens of the wealthy during his years spent hustling to earn enough money to keep himself alive, but this greenhouse put them all to shame. He'd also never seen such carefully tended plants anywhere in his hometown. To him, nature wasn't something you went out of your way to nurture. Instead, it was an untouched wild threat that was a constant presence everywhere. Ruggy had no idea what any of these plants were called, and he crushed them underfoot as he moved deeper into the garden. He pushed green, fragrant leaves aside until he found a tall boy lying beneath a tree. It was Leona Kingscholar, third-year student and housewarden of Savanaclaw dorm. Leona, lunch is served, my friend, Rookie called out. Then he called again, and again. Finally, a crease appeared between the tall boy's eyebrows, and he opened his eyes. They were a green reminiscent of a midsummer plant. That is certainly a word you can use to describe the color of green that is Leona's eyes. You know, they're trying to be creative, but I don't know what the hell a midsummer plant is. Like, what does that mean? What does that mean? Anyway, reminiscent of a midsummer plant, bright with self-confidence. But the large scar that ran from his left eyebrow down to his cheek muted the force of those eyes to give him an overall look of ennui. Is it noon already? Leona said with a wide yawn. Froggy let out an exasperated sigh. Don't tell me you've been asleep all morning. You're going to fail more of your core classes. Whatever. Anyway, did you get what I wanted? Ruggy didn't bother to respond. Leona's ancestors were lions. There was no way he had failed to pick up the scent of his prey. Huh. Leona looked up at Ruggy. Looks like you actually pulled it off today. Barely. Must you always request the most popular item on Bakery Day? Ruggy asked as he handed over the deluxe ham and cheese sandwich. He also gave him a nice tea, which he'd picked up on the way, figuring Leona would want a drink with his lunch. He knew only too well that this level of obsequiousness, obsequiousness. Ostentatiousness is the word I'm going to use. Was essential in order to prove him as an excellent gopher. Leona accepted them without a word and grinned almost mockingly. Are you brain dead? The fact that it's hard to get is exactly what makes me want it so bad. Is that it? Me? I'll eat anything, so long as it isn't moldy. Getting into Night Raven College had seriously changed Ruggy's life. He doubted any other student at the school could even imagine life in the slum, wondering where their next meal would come from. Leona in particular had almost certainly never experienced pangs of hunger so painful that death seemed preferable, or had put rotten food into his mouth when he could no longer stand those painful pangs. But as a prince, Ruggy said, I doubt you could relate, your highness. Leona sniffed indignantly. It ain't like I'm the first in line for succession. I'm the second-born prince, so I probably won't ever be king. I'm practically a commoner, really. You're not, Ruggy protested. You once saw a picture of my family's home and mistook it for a doghouse, remember? Did I really? Leona said, evenly as he polished off the sandwich in big bites. He seemed ravenous, but the way he ate was nevertheless somehow refined. Ruggy was impressed. I guess the way you're raised shows up in small things like this, huh? He thought. Like Leona, Ruggy was from the Sunset Savannah, but Ruggy grew up in a garden variety slum, a member of the hyena family, which was looked down on and tried out. Oh my goodness, words. Which was looked down on out of tired tradition. Leona was one of the country's 2 princes, which we already established because he said that he was the second-born son, and he wouldn't be king. So we... I guess we didn't know that there were only 2 princes, but we could infer the fact that there are 2 princes from Leona talking about how he is the second prince. Anyway, Ruggy had been surprised when he arrived at Night Raven College and learned that a prince from his own land was an upperclassman in his dorm, and he'd quickly decided to cozy up to the prince. Strong, smart, born with a silver spoon in his mouth. If he could hitch his wagon to this prince, he would never go hungry again. We have our Lion King reference on page 50. It only took us 50 pages to get there. Well, technically it didn't because of the dream, but so it goes. The royal life stinks, honestly, Leona told him. All that matters is the order of your birth. Hard work and talent basically mean nothing. I guess I could see that being a drag. It is. In the end, there's the king and that's it, Leona rolled his eyes. All those other folk who aren't born to be kings stuck living their lives trying to curry favor. Nothing free about that. If Leona knew how Ruggy had lived in Sunset Savannah, his words certainly didn't acknowledge it or show any consideration. But Ruggy knew he couldn't get angry at Leona's arrogance. That would end what he had been working towards. Ruggy could poke and jab in a lighthearted way, but if he reacted seriously, Leona would cut him loose in a heartbeat. Leona hated any kind of hassle. As if I'd set it all on fire like that, Ruggy chuckled to himself. Only a fool would get carried away by emotion and trash a hard-won advantage. Leona almost certainly knew Ruggy was strategic like this. He was a good boss, but lazy, which also made him sloppy with money. And while he was occasionally rough with people, he was always generous with those who served him. Once again today, he asked no questions about his change from lunch, allowing it to stay tucked in Ruggy's pocket, just as Ruggy had anticipated. Leona clearly understood that a little reward went a long way. Above all else, Leona had ambition. That golden ambition is what mesmerized Ruggy. Oh, by the way, there's the house warden meeting after school today about the spell drive tournament. Please try to actually show up, Ruggy said, and Leona nodded perfunctorily. Ah, what a headache, Leona grumbled as he laid back down under the tree. I'm having another snooze. Wake me after lunch break is over. I'm not your alarm clock, I'm not your alarm clock, Leona, Ruggy muttered, but Leona didn't open his eyes. My. Riddle Rosehearts hurried towards the mirror chamber, the large multi-purpose room that housed the dark mirror that chose which dorm students would join for the house warden meeting. When he entered the ornate room, the other house wardens pointedly averted their eyes, just as they had ever since that fateful day when he overblotted. Oh, poor baby Riddle. Oh, poor baby. Well, if it isn't the angry little baby from Heartsable, the seated Leona taunted as he crossed his legs. You all better now? You could have stayed in bed like a good little boy surrounded by all your fanboys. I appreciate your concern, Riddle said, firmly rebuffing Leona's sneer. But I'm quite capable of managing my own health. The truth was, however, Riddle had been hard-pressed to even stand up for a period of time afterward. His entire body was leaden and sore, so that he wondered if he'd burned up all his stamina and vitality, along with his magic. On top of that, wherever he went, he felt the eyes of other people on him, gazes full of fear, curiosity, and contempt. He was the mage who had lost himself to anger and overblotted, the tyrant who had been rejected by his dorm mates, the former honors student who caused an unprecedented scandal at the famed Arcane Academy. Every whispered word was like a knife in Riddle's pride. The whispers tormented him every single day, especially because they were all true. He knew he must accept this punishment. What he had done was serious, and he was honestly grateful he hadn't been expelled for the incident. He wasn't yet able to process exactly how his mother had convinced the academy not to end his enrollment. Well then, had Mage Dyer Crowley said, I call to order this meeting of house wardens. Our agenda today concerns the Interdorm Spell Drive tournament to take place at the end of this month. The house wardens gathered in the mirror chamber nodded. Let us begin with the report from the head of the tournament planning committee, Mr. Azul Ashengrotto of Octavinel Dorm. Standing in the center of the room was the Octavinel Dorm house warden. Greetings, he said. I am Azul, and it is my honor to lead the planning committee. I am here with my report. Azul was a third year like Riddle and had become house warden that year. A third year, you say? A third? That took a little time for my brain to register that, but he's not in fact a third year. Azul is a second year. He's a second year. This is gonna be the Cater thing all over again. The Cater thing from the anime when he's like, I am what was he? I'm a junior when he should have said I'm your junior. Yeah. Oh man, this is gonna keep happening, isn't it? And this is one of the big translation issues. Gosh darn it, guys. What? How do we not know? How do we not understand? How do we not have a proofreader that knows these things? That's what I don't get. How are we not proofreading this with people that have actual knowledge so that they can actually say if the things are right or wrong? Ay, 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 ay. Riddle is in fact a second year. They just mistranslated it for God knows why. Anyway, Azul was a second year, like Riddle, and become house warden that year. Smiling brightly, he seemed diligent and kind, the very picture of an honor student. A person meeting him for the first time would have been hard-pressed not to like him, but the other house wardens knew him to be an extremely calculated and guarded boy. Wearing his perfect smile, Azul gave his report on the state of preparations for the tournament. A large number of guests had been invited, as always, and it promised to be a spectacular event. That's all from me. Does anyone have any questions? Azul said, glancing around at the other house wardens. No one spoke up, and so Azul, assuming no one had any concerns, sat back down. The head mage stood once more. Crowley cut an imposing figure in his top hat, long coat, and conspicuous black mask, which had a sharp pointed nose and covered his face from his forehead to below his golden eyes. I don't understand why we are getting this now and not before when Crowley was first introduced, but okay. Now then, we need to discuss the tournament matchups. I have an idea I'd like to propose, he said, and then cleared his throat and pursed his lips. It concerns the Diasomnia House Warden. I think we should induct Malleus Draconia into the Hall of Fame to keep him off of the field entirely. Murmurs rippled through the mirror chamber. The Hall of Fame? Riddle asked. There's no precedent for that. Azul shrugged. As the leader of the planning committee, he hadn't heard anything about this from the head mage beforehand, and it appeared to be news to the others as well. What are you on about? Leona demanded, his expression. His expression stirred. Ever since Mr. Draconia enrolled here, no dorm has scored even a single point against Diasomnia, the head mage said briskly. Diasomnia's regular scores 100 points per game, with 90% of them being for Mr. Draconia himself. That's rough. That's rough. If you think about like a normal sports game, like a football game, right? Like an American football game, right? The highest scores I feel like are in the 40s or 50s. This is like double that for a singular team. That's kind of wild for what we're doing here. I didn't really know it was that bad. I thought Malleus at least had some form of decorum to not, you know, do this drastic of a thing against the enemy team. Huh. Interesting. Yeah, exactly. The dude totally breaks the game. It's like he's got a cheat code enabled. Said the disembodied voice of Edie. The disembodied voice of Edie Shroud. Oh man, the Igni-eyed house warden. His voice was coming from a tablet that was set out in his place. He was quite antisocial and rarely appeared in person at these meetings. Instead, Idia remained in his room, using the tablet to listen and mutter something incomprehensible comments. As usual, Riddle failed to understand the better part of what he said, but he could tell that the Igni-eyed house warden was scornful of Draconia, to say the least. The game? The head mage asked, a harsh look on his face. No, listen. Amusement is not the only goal of this tournament. Our hope is that spectators the world over will discover talented new mages. His serious tone made Riddle realize the true intention behind the proposal. The Spell Drive tournament determined the students' future career options. Those who performed well were scouted for the Pro League and made their professional debuts soon after graduating. This was the dream and goal of more than a few students. There were probably even some who had come to Night Raven College specifically as a way to become a professional player. Recent matches have ended without anyone, save Mr. Draconia, casting even a single spell, and that includes his own teammates. That is less than optimal state of affairs, the head mage continued. Riddle remembered exactly what the state of affairs had been like last year. Just as the head mage noted, it had been quite a competition of knowledge, stamina, and magic, but Malleus, the world's leading mage, had bent it to his will with his overwhelming magical strength. The other Diasomnia players in the opposing teams hadn't managed to get in a single play. They'd simply been trampled underfoot. Such a show could hardly be called a tournament or even a sporting event. Still in a daze, Riddle heard his vice housewarden, Trey Clover, sigh, further surprising him. This was how it went last year, too, his vice housewarden noted. Last year was a bit of bad luck for the Savanaclaw dorm in particular, Crowley said as he lowered his voice, looking concerned. For the second year in a row, they were paired against Diasomnia for their first match in the tournament and eliminated in the first round. Interesting. Okay, so that implies that they don't always go against Diasomnia in the first round. That implies that there's like a round robin or some form of coin toss to figure out which dorms go against who. Yeah, but like I'm still concerned as to why no one approached Malleus after that game and was like, "Hey, this is not fun. We know you have good strength. You can still win, but you gotta at least let them do things. Like, you gotta let your team do things. You gotta let people, you gotta at least make it look like you're allowing things to like the things can happen." But I don't know if that conversation was had with him or not. So everyone in the mirror chamber looked at Leona, the Savanaclaw housewarden. Savanaclaw had been a frequent champion ever since the Academy began holding the Spell Drive tournament, and they never placed lower than third. In fact, Savanaclaw had such a strong team that Riddle had assumed they would latch onto Malleus and really dig their teeth into him right up until the end. Undoubtedly, the fact that they were a proven force on the field made it all the more frustrating that a single player could change the game so thoroughly. Riddle would never forget Leona's angry roar when he heard they had been shut out. It had been a rare display of rage from the generally stoic lion boy. We didn't really need to add boy to the end of that sentence. Also, Leona is 20. I don't know if he counts as like a boy. I mean, I don't know what other word you would actually use to describe him. You could have just said stoic lion. You could have just dropped the boy. It would have made sense still. That's certainly not impressing any recruiters, the head mage continued. Thus, this matter of disproportionate performance directly affects the future of the students of Savanaclaw, many of whom have their sights set on careers as professionals. And you're saying you expect us to make fools of ourselves on the field again this year? Leona demanded, a menacing edge in his voice that reminded Riddle of his roar last year. While he wasn't quite yelling, his anger was barely contained. No, the head mage shook his head. That's not what I'm saying. How is it different? Leona pressed. Our great and wise head mage believes we'll face crushing defeat again this year, and so you're kindly removing Malleus from play by inducting him into the Hall of Fame and taking pity on our poor, wretched souls? Well, it certainly brings me no pleasure to suggest it. The head mage averted his eyes, which was the equivalent of admitting Leona was correct. Leona fell silent, and the head mage spoke again, his tone deliberately cheery. Come now, it's not such a bad deal, is it? Regardless, I have already gained Draconia's informal consent on the matter. All we need now— wait. Already gained his informal consent? Crowley? Crowley? We need formal consent. We need consent to be clear, Mr. Crowley. Crowley. It literally says informal. Informal. Crowley. All we need now is this committee's approval. Riddle and the other house wardens, except for Leona, looked at each other bewildered. Hall of Fame? Malleus Draconia? The measure was indeed extraordinary, but it would prevent the spectacular defeats they saw last year. Not only that, it might even give Riddle the opportunity to unveil some clever bits of magic and show off his superior skills as a mage to the students of his own dorm, and perhaps to the world. He wanted to win so badly he could taste it. Here was his chance to regain his status. His rational mind insisted that he couldn't let this opportunity to remove Malleus from the playing field to get away from him. But would his personal pride in his own abilities really allow him to take the easy way out? A groan jolted him out of his thoughts. So you're saying we need a handicap, Leona said, standing up. Listen and listen well, Teach. Ain't nothing I hate more in the whole world than someone telling me you can't win before I even have a chance to fight. Riddle couldn't see Leona's expression, nor could he make out the head mage's expression under his mask, but an intimidating air radiated from the house warden's back. Then Leona turned around, a smile on his face in stark contrast with his tone. This doesn't bug you guys? He asked, his quiet voice carrying to every corner of the mirror chamber. Remember how things went down last year and the year before? How it felt to be nothing more than a stage for the great Malleus Draconia to strut on, flaunting his abilities? You sure you want to let him walk away with that win? We do this Hall of Fame thing, and will be forever branded as the herbivores who scurried off in fear of Malleus. Leona's appeal entered their ears and shook their hearts. That unbearable humiliation flared to life in each of them. Malleus hadn't looked particularly happy when the TV cameras pointed at him after he'd won. He'd simply cocked his head as if to say, "Is that all?" Malleus! Why has no one talked to Malleus? Why is no one, nary a person, as far as we are currently aware, talk to him about how this is supposed to go down? About how to do proper PR? Why? Riddle and the others had stared with disgust and a hint of fear. With this monster on the field, their talents were useless. They didn't even have the chance to show them off. The sight of the young mages lying prostrate on the ground after having been completely blown away by Malleus's storm magic no doubt still lingered in memories around the world. Riddle couldn't even count the number of times he'd come across people sneering and whispering that the students of the supposedly acclaimed Night Raven College can't compete against someone with innate talent. The thought made him grit his teeth. And then we have a picture of Leona where he doesn't look pissed at all. I don't know how to describe it, but he doesn't look mad. He's trying to be cunning, I think, in this picture, where we are on the table and we are looking up towards him as he stands up from the table. And then we have, of course this bothered them. How could it not? Naturally, every boy in that room shared the burning desire to prove themselves on the world stage. But what would Leona have them do about this tempest they were up against? Noticing the confusion on the faces around him, Leona turned his face upward. Ah, he sighed, shrugging rather deliberately before spreading his hands out. Sure, in a battle of brute force, no one's beaten him. That's a fact. But in a battle of wits, that's a different story. Leona raised his voice. Spell Drive ain't a game about power. It's about what's up here in your head. You all should be racking your brains trying to come up with a way to drag Malleus down. Drag Malleus down, Riddle muttered. Leona looked over and nodded. Yeah, he said. What's giving up gonna do when you still have a chance? Natch? Oh, I think naturally. I think he... Okay. I think what Leona's saying here is naturally it won't be easy, but they put natch, like a shortened version of naturally, but they didn't put the little apostrophe to show that it is a shortened version of the word. So it really threw me off. Natch, it won't be easy. That's exactly why whichever team figures it out is going to be sitting real pretty on the world stage. His voice grew more animated, as though he was enjoying himself. After their win these last couple of years, Deosomnia's gonna get sloppy. Now's our time. Sure, it's risky, but that only makes the reward even sweeter. His clear confidence chipped away at the lingering anxiety in the room. Beating Malleus would be difficult, everyone understood that painfully well. Defeating the world's leading mage would be no easy task. But Leona's words stirred their fighting spirit, made them want to stand up to Malleus. They began to imagine a brighter outcome. Malleus had been lording himself over us this time, and us little people taking him down be the ultimate humiliation for him. So, don't you want to see that self-important, stuck-up jerk's crestfallen face get broadcast to the entire world? And don't you want to be the one who put that look on his face? Doesn't the thought of it make you want to roar? Leona declared. The housewardens glanced at each other, and they nodded. For once, Leona's making perfect sense, muttered Vil Schoenheit, Pomfiore's housewarden, as he smiled daringly. Vil was particularly proud of his own beauty and would stand to look up. Would not stand to look ugly before others. I agree. Crowley's plan is utter nonsense. I am also in agreement, declared Kaleem Al-Asim, the housewarden of Scarabia Dorm. He threw his hand up into the air with an insouciant smile. It's not nice to leave only Malleus out of the group. We should all have fun together at a tournament like this. Yes, I think Leona's proposal is quite marvelous, Azul said. He clasped his hands together in front of his chest, as though deeply moved, but there was a shrewd light in his eyes. Malleus's loss would certainly boost the ratings. It would be the instant talk of the town. Who knows what kind of impact it would have in the end. I do think a Hall of Fame induction would also be fine, though, Edia said, his disinterested voice emanating through the tablet speaker. Ignihai didn't really participate in sporting events, so Edia was neither assenting nor rejecting either idea. He didn't care one way or the other. As the rest of the undecided housewardens each agreed with Leona, Riddle was left as the only one who hadn't yet responded. The other boys turned to him curiously. He met their eyes squarely and responded, I too am in agreement. As one of the foremost mages here, the last thing I want to do is give up without a fight. It's settled then, Leona said. His satisfied grin seemed to praise Riddle. To say, way to push back, pal. However, Riddle wasn't particularly comfortable with Leona's tactics. Leona didn't care about wit about rules. They were both housewardens, yet Leona did not seem to concern himself with the job at all. His nature and attitude towards life weren't anything the rule-following Riddle respected. How could such an unserious slacker be a housewarden? At times, Riddle had even gotten angry at the lion boy and censured him directly. He found Leona's laziness, elusiveness, and penchant for sarcasm infuriating. Moreover, the hardest thing for him to accept was the fact that Leona was adored by the students of Savanaclaw. Why would anyone respect someone who continuously ignored the rules? A person who didn't maintain order and had no value? Dang, Riddle! Dang, no value, huh? Wow! Wow! I didn't think that it was that deep. I didn't think that the distaste was that deep. I don't want to know what he thinks about Edia. Good lord. Good lord, buddy. Whoa. My goodness. Riddle was of the mind that such a person should not be permitted to exist. What do you mean? Riddle. Uncalled for, Riddle. Uncalled for. Riddle. Yet Riddle could now understand people's reactions to him. Leona excelled at reading people. He poked at the anxieties and complexities of others and offered just the right words to prod and encourage them. Riddle couldn't deny the joy and hope that had welled up inside him, kindled by Leona's words. Until now, he'd had no idea that exhortations and pep talks could pierce people's hearts in this way. Interesting, huh? I think we have our answer, Leona said proudly. The Hall of Fame idea is officially shut down. Fine, fine, I understand, Crowley conceded, shaking his head. But I expect everyone to live up to all the boasting you've done today. Well, put in the work, don't you worry, Leona said leisurely, undaunted by the head mage's warning. Leona's confidence came off as arrogance at times, but right then, it dazzled Riddle. If Riddle could read people and manipulate them the way Leona did, his situation might be very different. There was no use in crying over spilled milk. That was exactly why he wanted to make his mark on the tournament and regain the approval of his dorm. That is the end of chapter 3. Good lord, Riddle. Oh my, oh my, oh my, oh my, oh my. You know, it's nice to see into the other characters' heads and to get some of their thoughts that, like, we don't get to see in game, right? Obviously, we don't have nearly as many, like, inner thoughts and inner, like, dialogues for most of the stuff, but didn't think that he should exist? Riddle! What was the other thing he said? There was 2 things. It was just like, damn, kid. Ay. Had no value and shouldn't exist. Bro. Bro. Man, that is not going to help Leona's issues at all, I think. But anyway, we're on to chapter 4 now. Chapter 4. Alrighty. Practice for the Spell Drive tournament began on the sports field. Each dorm brought out their most powerful players and set them to work, training enthusiastically during their allotted time. The whole of Night Raven College was caught up in the Spell Drive fever, with students passionately arguing about who would make it onto the Spell Drive teams and which dorm would be victorious. The knockout structure of the tournament only fanned the flames. Ace and Deuce were not immune to the excitement and spent happy days absorbed in Spell Drive. They told Yuya that the better House Warden players, Riddle first among them, were doing strength training. Even though Ace grumbled that the dorm was still cleaning up all the Hearthstable Garden that had been destroyed during the Overblood incident, and he needed the extra work from the training for Spell Drive like an extra hole in his head, he, too, was in high spirits at the changes in their everyday routine. That is a lot of words. And I don't understand the extra hole in his head. Oh, I see. Needed the extra work like he needed an extra hole. Okay, that... Wait, maybe... I don't know. That was a very long sentence. The only place where leisure reigned, it seemed, was Yuya's own ramshackle dorm. I don't want to do anything, Grim grumbled from the sofa. He was lying face down, sulking, and his voice was muffled by the cushions. Yuya brought his ear closer as Grim muttered a string of complaints. It's no fair! Everyone else is having the time of their lives, the monster moaned. I mean, You're still not over that? Yuya sighed. It's been 3 days, and it's not like we can do anything. Give it up already. Yuya sat down beside Grim, and the trio of house ghosts came flying in. Oh, Grimmy's been real quiet lately, one said, sadly shaking his head. No fun scaring a guy that's down in the dumps. Something's got him feeling blue, another asked. Oh, that's right, Yu said to the trio. I guess we haven't actually told you yet, but the Spell Drive's tournament is coming up soon. Oh, the ghosts chorused excitedly. Spell Drive, huh? The largest ghost danced around gleefully in the air. Already that time of year, then. That's the main event for sorcerers. I heard it gets pretty busy, Yuya agreed. Do you all watch every year? You bet we do. And we're not just regular fans, the ghost shook his head. Nope, we're actually in the tournament 90 years ago. We really set the place on fire. Yuya didn't know much about the ghosts, so he was fascinated by the revelation that they had once been students at Night Raven 90 years ago. Even back then, Spell Drive had been popular sport. No fair, Grim whined as his tail thwacked the sofa. I I want to make all the people scream and yell too. Yuya shrugged at the ghosts. There's only the two of us at Ramshackle Dorm, so we can't play in the tournament. Grim's taking it pretty hard, he said. So that's what's going on, a ghost replied. Too bad. We'd have whipped you right into shape if you were allowed to play. As the ghost reminisces about the good old days and their many exciting adventures on the Spelldrive field, the front doorbell rang. Yuya glanced out the window and saw that the sun was setting. Who would be here at this hour, he wondered aloud. Ain't it gonna be those Hartsleable kids? The ghost asked, referring to Ace and Deuce, who sometimes hung out at Ramshackle Dorm. But they said they had an unbirthday party today, Yuya mused, thinking of the Hartsleable Dorm's traditional formal high tea parties that were held on a day that wasn't anyone's birthday. The Hartsleable house warden could throw one of these parties whenever he chose to. Yuya trotted to the front door and found a man wrapped in a cloak blacker than night. It was the head mage, Dyer Crowley. Head mage Crowley, good evening, Yu said, and bowed hurriedly. Facing the head mage in his tall top hat, Yuya, who was already shorter than Crowley, felt shrunk to the size of a small child. How tall is Crowley? He's not that tall, right? Now I'm curious. Dyer. If I could type properly, Dyer. Oh my gosh. My keyboard is farther away than normal because I have to fit the book on my desk. But now I want to know. Dyer Crowley. How tall are you, buddy boy? How tall? How tall? How tall are we? Do we not even know his height? Gender, age, birthday, star sign, height. Oh, 185. Centimeters to feet. CM to FT. We have 180. I put 80 and it said 2.6 feet. And I was like, he's not 2 feet tall. He's 5'9". He's 5'9". I guess the top hat makes him like 6 foot tall. But he's 5'9" according to my very, very scuffed calculations. He's 4 lungs tall. I suppose so. I suppose so. Interesting. Interesting. Huh. Anyway. Good evening, you, the head mage smiled. May I? Of course, please, come in. Yuya's heart beat faster as he led the head mage to the lounge and invited him to take a seat on the sofa. Crowley rarely visited Ramshackle Dorm, so his appearance at that hour meant he must have something important to discuss. Yuya wondered if maybe he had learned some new information about his homeworld. What if Crowley had found a way for Yuya to go home? Yuya's hopes climbed higher with each passing second. My. Poor you. The head mage looked at Grim flopped over on the sofa and exclaimed, "How curious!" Crowley arched a skeptical eyebrow. To think that Grim could be this quiet. Is he sleeping? Is he sleeping? No, Yuya shook his head. He's skulking because he's sulking because he can't play in the Spelldrive tournament. Oh, is that the issue? The Spelldrive tournament, the head mage nodded. This is perfect timing, then, as that is exactly what I wish to speak with you both about. The tournament, Grim yelped. He yanked his head up, and the ghosts hanging in the air faded and then reappeared. You came to say I could play? Goodness, you really snapped at that one. You snapped at that one, the head mage said, amused. However, this is not what I came to discuss. She shanna give a hoot why you're here then, Grim exclaimed. Dejected, he fell onto his back. Please don't pay him any mind, Yuya said. The truth is, Crowley murmured, it's only a matter of time before word reaches your ears, since rumors have been circulating among the student body. There has been a rash of students injured in suspicious incidents on campus lately. Yuya frowned. Injured? Yes, falling downstairs, receiving burns from boiling water, and so forth. The specifics of these incidents differ, but the last few days, the nurse's office has had a spike in injuries needing treatment. Just before I came, a student was brought in after falling and twisting his ankle. That's not great, the ghost said. I get it, though, one ghost remarked. With spell drive tourney coming up, they're all getting carried away and clumsier. No, that is not the issue, the head mage insisted, leaning forward and holding up a gloved finger, covered in elaborate metal rings. There is something suspicious about this matter. All the injured students are major tournament contenders who are expected to perform well this year. Oh, wow, Yuya gasped. And then they asked timidly, so you don't think these are accidents, then? No, I think we can safely assume they are not, the head mage replied. Yuya was at a loss for words. Statistically speaking, it was impossible that only the top spell drive players would become injured after one another. Students who were serious about competing in spell drive knew they needed to be in top condition for the tournament, and they'd be extra careful to avoid injuries. So if these accidents were being caused deliberately, it meant there was a culprit, someone whose motive seemed obvious. The ghosts were unusually silent as they watched the conversation. We have no evidence of foul play, Headmage Crowley continued. All the accidents have happened in public spaces, and witnesses say they seemed like the result of nothing but the carelessness of the person injured. So maybe it's just a string of bad luck, Yuya suggested hopefully. I really can't say for certain at this point, the headmage shook his head grimly and leaned forward. It does make one ask questions. However, does it not? To scratch one's head? I would like you and Grim to undertake an investigation. Me? What? Us? Yuya blinked in surprise. I'm not sure how I can help. You are mistaken, I assure you, Crowley shook his head. After all, did you not neatly resolve the matter with Rosehearts? I wasn't the one who resolved it. Yuya slumped back into the sofa. Yuya wondered if the head mage might be the origin of the rumors about his exceptional abilities that had spread throughout the school. With everyone focused on the Spell Drive tournament, Yuya felt like the unwanted attention directed his way was finally dying down. Now, more trouble had come knocking on his door, and it was no minor thing. Someone might be hurting students on purpose. Yuya didn't know how to say no as the head mage smiled at him overbearingly. Think of it as a thank you for providing you with clothing, food, lodging. It's not a small price to pay, the head mage suggested. Well, Yuya frowned. I guess that's true, but, isn't it? Crowley said. It is true. Ah, how marvelously generous I am. The head mage had made a place for Yuya in Twisted Wonderland, which meant he'd held Yuya's life in his hands. Only Crowley's mercy had allowed him to be accepted as a Night Raven College student. Without that benevolence, Yuya would have had nowhere to go, lost in a foreign world with no way home. Faced with Crowley sitting confidently before him, Yuya could only nod and accept the head mage's request. Grim turned his face away, perhaps forgetting that he was also owed his status at the college to Crowley, who had allowed Yuya and Grim to matriculate as one student. Which we got that info so many chapters ago. Grim would perform any task that required magic, and Yuya would keep Grim's ferocious personality in line. Or perhaps Grim just didn't care. Not interested, Grim huffed. So some dolts tripped over their own 2 feet. Serves 'em right. Come now, Grim, one of the ghosts said, his tone kindly. I mean, remember how much you wanted to play the Spell Drive tournament? Those poor kids gotta be so upset right now. I feel bad for 'em. We expect Grim to have empathy? Wow, that's a wild... that's a wild take, Ghost. Grim sneered and crossed his arms. Why should I care? I don't get to play in the tournament. Nobody gets to play in it. That's so mean, Yuya said with a sigh, upset at Grim's lack of sportsmanship. The ghosts were likewise exasperated. The head mage said nothing, deep in thought, which made Yuya anxious. In that case, I shall arrange for a special reward, the head mage said, grinning, but there is a... Oh, shall I? I read those words in the wrong order. Shall I? In that case, shall I arrange for a special reward? What if I allowed you to compete in the Spell Drive tournament? Pardonnez me, what? Grim shouted as he leapt to his feet. What did you say? His large round eyes glittered with hope, and he suddenly transformed into a different creature from the ill-tempered monster of a moment ago. Pleased with the effect of his proposal, the head mage gleefully rubbed his hands together. Should you solve the case, as thanks, I shall generously permit your ramshackle dorm to enter the hallowed Night Raven College's Spell Drive tournament. Ah, my magnanimity knows no bounds. We don't have enough players, though, you said hesitantly. That's what Professor Corell told us. As school head mage, I will simply perform a magical miracle to fill out your team. Crowley's compromise came so quickly and addressed Yuya so concerned so neatly that it made Yuya wonder if the school couldn't have just let them be in the tournament right from the start. He raised a dubious eyebrow, but Grim appeared not to have noticed. In his great delight, he was jumping up and down on the sofa, causing clouds of dust to puff up, dirtying the room they had just cleaned. Oh, why? Yeah, Grim cried. I'm gonna make a big splash in this Spell Drive tournament. You haven't won your place yet, the head mage warned pointedly, looking severe. Your participation is contingent on solving the case. Please investigate with you. Is that understood? You betcha, Grim crossed his arms with a smug look. Now that I'm on the case, your little problem will be solved in no time flat. Would it really be that easy? Yuya wasn't sure. He had no idea how or where to even start. Not only didn't they know very much about Spell Drive, but they barely knew anything about the school itself. Not only didn't they know... I mean, I guess that's grammatically correct, but it sounds weird. Grim's innocent delight made Yuya even more anxious. If Grim's hopes were dashed again, he would probably go on a magical rampage, the likes of which Yuya couldn't imagine, followed by days of miserable moping. Calming an angry Grim was a lot of work. Yuya felt sorry for the little monster who'd been so seriously dejected the past few days. Not sensing Yuya's thoughts, Grim patted his shoulder cheerfully. This is great, huh, henchhuman? He said. Ramshackle Dorm's gonna be in the Spell Drive tournament. Yeah, I guess so, Yuya nodded slowly. I'll be the best detective I can to make sure we get to play. Yuya resolved to start digging for information first thing tomorrow, and gently patted Grim's head in return. Ace was doing perfect imitation of Riddle's voice. Ace, have you not learned? Listen, you all, he says. This year we cannot allow Dear Somnia to beat us at the Spell Drive tournament. Ace pursed his lips annoyed before saying in his own voice, as if scoring on Malleus Draconia was as easy as that. Yuya gave a pained smile. He'd only barely arrived in class that morning when he was treated to an earnest and detailed retelling from Ace of the previous day's unbirthday party. Don't be rude, Deuce said with a frown, already in his seat. I thought it was a pretty passionate speech. I could feel how much he wants all of us to win. I'm telling you, it was annoying, Ace snapped. That wasn't an unbirthday party, it was a prep rally. You're about the only person I know who'd be in the mood to party after a toast like that. They were bickering as usual, not genuinely angry, but like they were making a game out of it. Grim, who'd been quiet ever since arriving in class, snickered. You two sure keep showing up every day, even though you don't got a chance of actually playing in the big game, he teased, a knowing smile on his face, his attitude completely transformed from the day before. Ace and Deuce looked at him curiously. No whining about how jealous you are today? Deuce asked. Grim stood up as if he'd been waiting for this very question. I ain't jealous no more. I'm gonna be in the Spell Drive tournament. What? How did that happen? Ace demanded. That's not for sure yet, Yuya said, and then he told his friends about the headmage's visit. Ace and Deuce looked shocked, their eyes as wide as saucers. Neither of them had heard about the accidents. People are getting hurt? Deuce furrowed his brow. Actually, I think the guys sitting in front of me were talking about that the other day. Pretty sure they were from Pomfiore dorm. Well, this is a total newsflash for me. Can't believe we're looking at suspicious incidents here, Ace said, looking around and lowering his voice. Any whispers at our dorm? Deuce shook his head. Not that I know of. No one said anything about this yesterday. They seemed to be the only ones in the class talking about the string of injuries, but word would spread soon enough. Yuya sighed, knowing how quickly things could escalate out of control when that happened. Grim threw his head back triumphantly and crowed. I'll sniff out whoever's doing this before you can say boo. But we don't even know if there is someone doing it, Yuya said. That was just Crowley's speculation. We did promise the head mage we'd look into it, so we're going to start investigating after school. That's easy enough to say, Deuce remarked, but what exactly are you going to do? I was thinking we could go talk to the people who got hurt, Yuya said. Makes sense, Deuce nodded, but then his face clouded. I wish I could give you a hand, if only for the sake of peace on campus, but I've got track practice after school today. Sorry, I only just joined the team, so it wouldn't be a good look to go ditching right away. As an honor student, I mean. Every student at Night Raven College. Ooh, okay, so now we get to know about clubs. Cool. Every student at Night Raven College had to join a team or club of some kind, and Deuce had joined track and field. He loved a vehicle called the Blast Cycle, and the sense of speed it gave him, and the track and field was the only club that focused on speed in the same way. Yuya didn't know what Blast Cycle was, but assumed it was like a motorcycle. He felt track and field was a good fit for Deuce, who liked to work out and challenge himself. It's okay, Yuya told him, and thanks. Based on what you said, I've got a lead to check into at Pomfiore now. What about you, Ace? Deuce asked, turning to his friend. Your club doesn't have practice today, right? Why are you volunteering me? Ace said with a scowl. No thanks, not interested. I don't need to help Grim become even more full of himself. Ace was in the basketball club, which he joined for two simple reasons. It looked cool, so girls would be impressed. Sure, Ace. Sure. Do we have any lovely ladies in chat? Can you confirm or deny if you would think someone being in the basketball club is cool? Can we just get like a couple hands raised if you think it would be cool? Because as a lovely lady myself, I don't think that is particularly all that awe-inspiring. Oh, man. Yuya thought that sounded like Ace. Oh well. Thanks anyway, Yuya sighed, slumping in his chair. He'd been hoping for their help. Deuce glared and Ace propped his chin on his hands. What? Why the face? Ace said amicably. I finally get a day off. Let me have it. Basketball's grinding me to dust, okay? That's what you get for picking a team for such a stupid reason, Deuce told him. Didn't you at least check practice schedules before you joined? Nah, didn't really bother. I just checked which cool senior guys were on the team. Yeah, no, that sounds like an Ace. That sounds like an Ace thing for sure. Yeah. Ace jerked his chin towards Yuya and Grim. If we're talking about lazy, you and Grim are way worse than me. I guess we actually are, Yuya sighed. When it had been time for Yuya and Grim to pick clubs, the head mage had sent them a message that they had to choose the same club. That made sense, given that they'd been accepted into the academy as if they were one student, and if Yuya wants to keep an eye on the monster, they had to do everything together. However, Grim was entirely uninterested in pretty much all of the clubs, except for those that involved food, such as the Science Club, where they cooked as part of their experiments, and the Pop Music Club, where they served sweets on breaks. Yet Grim's belly and selfishness worked against him. He couldn't control himself around food, and they'd been rejected by every club they tried to join, even the Pop Music Club. Oof. Oh, that's a big oof. Even Lilia, Kater, and Colleen had to kick Grim out because he was eating all of the snacks. Dang, buddy. Dang. That's rough. That's rough. I feel like they're a club that would basically accept everybody, but you got yourself kicked out because you couldn't handle the snacks? The one thing that I'm enjoying from this novel so far is the fact that it's been 74 pages. We're not even at 100 yet. They are making it so clear, so undeniably clear that Grim is such a glutton. Bro is just catching strays left and right. Ay, ay, ay. With the application deadline looming, Professor Corral informed them that through the process was complicated, it was possible for students to start their own clubs. So, Yuya and Grim did just that and created the Gastronomy Club. Naturally, this was Grim's idea. What's worse about us? Grim asked, baffled. It's the best club of them all. Eat all the tasty treats you want. Yuya sighed. It'd be great if we could actually get any treats to taste. Their wallets were so empty, moths flew out of them, so they couldn't afford to buy any gourmet food. Grim had suggested taste testing weeds. Yeah, but Yuya convinced him to make a project out of identifying which trees on campus produce the best apples. Yeah, that's a much better use of your time. When Yuya had told Ace and Deuce their club was ranking the campus apple trees, they'd burst out laughing. Don't you gotta do your little club job today? Ace teased and then lowered his voice. Well, we can't help you, okay? Do what you gotta do and keep this from blowing up. Of course, Yuya nodded in response to Ace's warnings. Don't worry, Grim and I are just going to ask people what happened to them. Ace shrugged. That actually is the iffiest option, Deuce said. Yuya nodded, not knowing what else to say. At the end of the school day, despite Yuya's anxiety, Grim turned out to be far more cooperative than you expected. Grim didn't approach their investigation, talking to people and hearing what they had to say, like a dull annoyance. Instead, he pulled Yuya by the hand towards the Hall of Mirrors, not the Mirror Hall. Hall of Mirrors. A small building that housed 7 mirrors that transported students to each of the 7 primary dorms. Ramshackle Dorm was located within the school's grounds, unlike all the other dorms, and thus had no mirror in the hall. Hurry, let's go already, Grim said impatiently. You're all fired up, huh? Yuya asked, surprised. Grim grinned so broadly, Yuya could see all the teeth in his large mouth. It's just getting to the tournament feels like we're finally gonna be real students at Night Raven College. Grim practically skipped down the hallway. Watching him, Yuya felt the weight on his heart grow lighter as determination welled up inside him. They had reached the Hall of Mirrors and stood in front of the mirror that led to Pomfiore Dorm, their first destination thanks to the tip from Deuce. The elegant mirror was adorned with a large peacock carved into the mirror's frame, its gorgeous feathers encircling the mirror. You and Grim stepped between the feathers and through the mirror, and the pair found themselves standing outside an equally elegant dorm building. The detailed exterior had a different kind of beauty from the sweetness of the verdant rose garden that surrounded Hartstable's dorm building. It was a sharper beauty, a bit reminiscent of the school's main building. Yuya faltered at the sight of the structure, partially because of its sheer magnificence and partly because they didn't know anyone in this dorm. Yuya steeled himself and approached a student near the gates. He told the student they wanted to talk to the student who'd been in the accident the other day, and the student brought them to the dorm lounge. Yuya and Grim settled onto the sofa to wait, and before long, a group of students came to meet them. The tallest one looked familiar. So you're the guests here to see our injured friend, the tall student said. Whoa, this guy's a human glitter bomb. He's all sparkly, Grim said. He blinked repeatedly, dazzled by the vision before him. A slight crease marred the boy's brow, as if to say, don't you know who I am? But even this look of near displeasure was lovely. His beauty was breathtaking, searing itself into one's brain. Yuya had seen this effect before at the orientation ceremony he had attended when he had been first mysteriously awoken in Twisted Wonderland. I'm the Pomfiore House Warden, Vil Schoenheit, he said gracefully, and this is Vice House Warden Rook Hunt. Rook swept a hat with a large feather from his head and brought it to his chest as he bowed, saying, the pleasure is mine. Yuya had only come to see the injured student. He hadn't dreamed the House Warden and Vice House Warden would deign to make an appearance. He hurried to return Rook's bow. I almost read that as bow, though, which would be really funny. Anyway, Yuya still got nervous talking with Night Raven students, but he was no longer quite so painfully shy thanks to his many conversations with Ace and Deuce. Nevertheless, Yuya shrank in the face of such glamorous upperclassmen. Hello, I'm Yu, first year, class A. Yuya wasn't exactly sure how to describe his status, so he simply blurted, I am a student at Ramshackle Dorm. We know that, obviously, Vil said, and snorted with laughter. You made quite the splash at the entrance ceremony. Then there was that whole situation. It's a real honor to meet the famed trickster, Rook exclaimed as he bent forward to shake Yu's hand. And you must be Grim. I'm truly overwhelmed at my good fortune to speak with you as well. It is a pleasure to meet you both. Meow. So I'm that famous, huh? Feels pretty good, not gonna lie, Grim said, preening. While Yuya wasn't happy with the rumors about them, Grim seemed more than pleased. Rook smiled brightly. The dorm was giving Yuya and Grim quite the warm welcome despite the unexpectedness of their visit. You came to see our accident victim, yes? This is him, Rook said, beckoning a second-year student forward. They exchanged hellos and Rook turned to look at the ceiling. Ah, he moaned. What a terrible tragedy. One would never dream anyone would grab onto a cauldron of simmering medicinal herbs with his bare hands. Huh? Grim said, baffled. So you actually grabbed a scorching hot cauldron all on your own? The injured student nodded, a strange look on his face. The monster erupted in laughter. Oh, wow, whoa! So you're just a regular klutz then? I am not, the student cried out and covered his eyes with bandaged hands. Yuya winced at the sight of them. I was being very careful. Of course, we believe you, Rook said, gently patting the student's shoulder. You are not to blame for this horrible misfortune. The whole thing simply breaks my heart. You were so devoted to spell drive practice, and now it is truly unbearable. Vice Housewarden Rook, I'm not giving up, the second-year student said. It's true that I'm no longer in top form, not with these hands, but I will be on the field. I will make our dorm proud come tournament time. Mon Dieu, Rook said. This fighting spirit in the face of such adversity is true beauté. Rook and the second-year student spoke with such passion, and astonished Yuya expected them to embrace. Their gestures were so theatrical that the whole scene seemed like something out of a play. Would you mind doing that later? Vil told them. His gaze cool. Would you two mind? Could you stop for a second? Thank you. And turned back to Yuya. You wish to hear about what happened when he got hurt, yes? Yuya nodded and Vil jerked his chin up. A student short enough to be hidden completely by Rook stepped forward. Yuya and Grim gaped. The boy was surprisingly adorable, with lavender hair. Hi, Apple! I didn't realize he was that short that Rook could hide him. Every feature on his face was painfully delicate, like a sugar confection that would crumble at the slightest touch. While he was just as lovely as Vil, his beauty felt ephemeral, like a fleeting vision. Apple, you were there when he got hurt, Vil said. Tell us what you saw. Apple nodded firmly. I was doing my potionology assignment after school, he said, his voice as small and as cute as his appearance. The upperclassman was also here, reviewing some classwork. He was handling all kinds of potions on the laboratory bench next to me. Then he suddenly grabbed the cauldron. He grasped as though realizing something and hurriedly shook his head. I guess I was very surprised. What? So he really wasn't even paying attention? Yeah? Grim said. With an exaggerated gesture, the injured student made his disagreement clear. As the others talked, Vil moved next to Yuya. I assume your presence here today means this was no mere accident, he said, his voice quiet. Huh? Yuya's eyes widened in surprise. Did you think we wouldn't catch on? Vil crossed his arms. You do realize how extremely odd it is to come asking after this incident, don't you? From what I'm told, our injured friend is not even an acquaintance of yours. It's only natural we would assume something bigger is at play here. Yes, there's actually a situation, Yuya said, then described the conversation they had with the head mage. Vil's expression turned hard. The head mage? Vil's anger made him look more striking than ever, giving him an intensity beyond anything an average person possessed. The proper thing for him to do would have been to inform us house wardens of the situation before assigning his little potato to investigate. Oh, I forgot Bill calls people potatoes. Oh man, but that's so cute and fun. I'm sorry, Yuya apologized, but Bill only looked more annoyed. Why are you apologizing? I was speaking of the head mage. Vil sighed in exasperation and turned away. We have nothing further to discuss with you. I will protect my dorm. You do what you must for yourselves. Clearly, this was all Yuya and Grim were going to get from the students at Pomfiore. Thank you so much, Yuya said, and he and Grim turned to return to the Hall of Mirrors. Those guys weren't too useful, Grim said, giving a big stretch. From the testimony they had gotten, it sounded like the accident had been sheer carelessness on the part of the victim. Maybe it really was just an accident, Yuya speculated. So then, case closed, Grim said happily. We just gotta report to the head mage and get him to work his magic so we can play in the Spell Drive tournament. They were about to leave the Hall of Mirrors when someone charged inside and slammed into them. Hey, watch it, man! Grim said, looking angrily. Then his eyes flew open. Wait, what? Ace, Deuce, what are you guys doing here? The panicked pair cried out when they saw Yuya and Grim. Guys, perfect timing, Ace said. So, I guess we got trouble? Clover fell down to the stairs. He's hurt, Deuce added. What? Yuya gasped. Trey? How? We don't know, Deuce said. He explained that he had heard the news from another Heartstable student, and then told Ace. I guess Trey is resting in his room now? He continued. We were just going to go check on him. You guys want to come? Yuya and Grim nodded eagerly, and all four slipped through the mirror to Heartstable. Dun, dun, dun! When the students knocked on the black door leading to Trey's room, he immediately called, Come in. Don't mind if I do, Ace stepped in, looking concerned. Deuce followed. How are you feeling, Clover? 2 for the price of 1, Trey remarked, sitting up in his bed. Did you come to pay me a sick visit? Then Yuya and Grim trailed him. And Trey cried out in surprise. Oh, you and Grim even! He flashed a smile. Thanks for taking the time. Of course, Yuya said. We were worried. We heard you fell down the stairs. We came all this way to see your sorry face, Grim told him. It's cool. Don't get up. Hey, Yuya chided the monster, but Trey paid him no mind. Well, thanks, Trey laughed. The cast on his right leg concerned Yuya, but otherwise Trey looked the same as always. His injuries weren't life-threatening, and Yuya sighed in relief. Fancy meeting you here, said Cater, a third year like Trey, except, they are actually third years. Okay. Yep, nope, that's correct. Yep. He was sitting in the chair next to the bed. I just pulled in a minute ago myself. Yuya noticed a small paper bag from the shop on the bedside table. It was tied in a bright orange ribbon, and Yuya guessed it was a get-well present from Cater, since it was the only thing in Trey's room that wasn't put neatly in place. Even Trey's desk was tidy and organized. Dark green trinkets were set here and there around the room, nicely accenting the Heartstable's dorm room's signature notes of red and black. Yuya complimented Trey on his large, lovely room and asked Ace and Deuce, Are your rooms singles too? Of course not, they chorused in unison. They explained to Yuya how dorms' rooms were allocated. Okay, so here we have the definitive allocation of all the things. First years got 4-person rooms, second years got 2-person rooms, and third years got their own rooms. That was their final year before they left campus for their 4th year off-site field work. The exception to this rule was house wardens, who got a private room regardless of what year they were in. Ace indicated Deuce with his chin and said, Me and Deuce here, we're not only in the same class, we even got the same room. So I gotta see this guy's ugly mug in the dorm, in the classroom, in the everywhere. And it's like, give me a break already. I'm gonna ask the house warden to make sure we get different rooms next year. Not if I ask him first, Deuce snapped. You're constantly bugging me when I study. I wish we could change rooms right now. Ha 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 ha, first year blues, Cater winked at Trey. I bet you're feeling better already with all this hot traffic. I mean, on top of hunting season here, you got good old Yui and Grimmy. All these cutie pies worshipping you. You're winning some kind of jackpot. Trey? And that is Trey with 3 Ys, by the way, if anyone wanted to know. Wait, I'm lost, Ace said, looking unhappy. What do you mean by hunting season? Uh-oh. I mean, it's you guys, Cater exclaimed. You're in the same class, same room. You're Ace, he's Deuce, and that's what you call an ace and a deuce in poker. What did you think? Rolls right off the tongue, doesn't it? Please don't lump me in with that guy, Deuce groaned indignantly, pointing at Ace. But like Ace said, glancing down at Trey's leg, how did you get hurt? Trey, looks pretty bad. Yeah. Trey sighed and scratched his head awkwardly. I didn't quite manage to fall right, so I guess I messed up my leg pretty spectacularly. I'll be on crutches for a while anyway. What? Ace cried out. Deuce also looked surprised. Yuya and Grim turned to each other and frowned. Looks really painful, Yuya said slowly. It's okay. Don't look so worried, Trey sighed and shrugged. Other than my leg, I'm totally fine. It's just the timing, you know? I hate it, but it looks like I'll be warming the bench at the Spell Drive tournament this year. Ugh, #fail, Cater said dejectedly, his shoulders slumping. Now that we've lost our power player, who knows what our team roster's gonna look like? You're a power player? Yuya asked. I guess you must be really good at sports then, huh, Trey? No, not really, Trey said, averting his eyes, embarrassed. I'm just average. Our dorm's never been that great at Spell Drive. Ouch, hits me where I live, Cater said with a laugh. Still, you always make the perfect assists for the guys on the team, you know, Trey? We're gonna have a huge U-shaped hole in the tourney this He says, oh, okay, hold on. All right, hold on. We're gonna have a huge U-shaped hole in the tourney, baby. You're too kind, Trey demurred. I mean, I wouldn't get picked for the team anyway, even if I was in peak condition. Okay, come on now, Cater told Trey. You totes would. Trey didn't seem attached to being on the team and accepted his fate. He smiled mischievously. Come on, Cater, he said teasingly. This means your chances of making the team just went up. After all, you're better at flight than me. If you get a position where you can use your broom, you're basically all set. You want me to give the guys a nudge in your direction? What? No, don't you dare, Cater exclaimed as he wrapped his arms around himself and shuddered. Your boy KK would wither and die in that grueling practice regime. Though Cater believed the team was going to be stuck without Trey, he played it up and fooled around so that it didn't seem like he was blaming the victim for hurting himself. It's not great, but I'm glad it's not more serious, Yuya said quietly to Ace and Deuce, but they weren't listening. Both looked shocked. The team roster? Ace murmured. Yuya asked his friends what they meant, but just then there was a knock on the door and the question was left unanswered. It's me, called a clear, distinct voice. Come in, Trey replied. The door opened and Riddle stepped in wearing his dorm uniform. Why are there so many people in here? Riddle demanded. Trey is supposed to be resting. I'm sorry, Yuya apologized reflexively, bowing his head. We stopped by to see how he was doing. Grim cried. It's Ragin' Riddle! Riddle glared at Grim, a sharp retort at the tip of his tongue, but he quickly turned away. We have better things to do here. He looked at the injured student. You can't just say that he looked at Trey? Or that he looked at the... Okay, how are you doing, Trey? Can I bring you anything to eat or drink? Don't hesitate to say the word. Trey rolled his eyes before responding. You asked me the same thing earlier. I'm good. You don't need to fuss over me like this. You're good with that leg? Riddle's tone was harsh, but his mouth was twisted into a sad frown. Ignoring Trey's complaint, Riddle kept suggesting things he could do or get for him. He was so persistent and so concerned that Trey was forced to smile. You're kind of killing it with the whole nice thing here, aren't you, House Warden? Ace asked curiously. Like Ace, Yuya wondered why Riddle was being so unusually kind. It was very much like Ace to come right out and ask Riddle what was going on. I mean, I was pretty nervous you'd barge in here and start yelling at him, all like, you have to take care of yourself. First Grim, and now you, Ace? I wouldn't get angry over something like this, Riddle said, sounding upset. His eyes lowered. And how could I find fault with him here? I'm the reason Trey got hurt. You're the reason, Housewarden Rosehearts? Deuce asked. What do you mean? Riddle exchanged a glance with Trey before he quietly explained. I needed to talk to him about the Spell Drive tournament, so we were walking down the hallway at lunch. Then I nearly fell down the stairs. Trey reached out to stop me and... Riddle described how Trey had grabbed his arm and yanked him back up to the landing, but Trey's momentum caused him to fall down the stairs himself. Riddle had carried Trey hurriedly to the nurse's office. I'm usually so careful. Riddle screwed up his face in frustration. Why did I nearly fall down the stairs? I'm really sorry, Trey. Knowing you, Trey said, even if you had fallen down the stairs, you probably would have broken your fall with magic or dealt with it some other way. All I did was get in your way. It was stupid of me to intervene. You don't owe me anything. Despite being injured, Trey was mature enough to smile and avoid making Riddle feel even worse. But Riddle looked even more pained. All I do lately is cause you trouble. It's honestly unforgivable. Now, Cater said. Trey says it's all good, so put on a happy face, my guy. It's not gonna do anyone any good to have your harshing the vibe in here. Riddle offered an awkward smile. I wanted to do something to make it up to you, so I researched foods that are good for muscles and bones. He said, pulling a folded piece of paper out of his pocket. Trey, make sure you eat the things on this list every day so you get better faster. Oh, that's so sweet, but that's not... I don't know if that's how that works. I don't know if you can just drink a whole bunch of milk and if it'll heal your bone faster. Fine, yes, okay, Trey said, looking as he took the paper. I'll eat these foods. The group filed out of Trey's room to let the patient have a bit of rest. Once the door was closed, Ace and Deuce both opened their mouths. Hey, so listening to the housewarden there got me thinking, Ace began. Doesn't it seem like this is part of what Yuya has been talking about this morning? Deuce asked. Yeah, I had the same thought, Yuya said as he nodded and looked at Grim. So this was actually... And what was little Yui talking about then? Cater interjected from behind. Yuya whirled around with a gasp. Cater and Riddle were looking at him curiously. He didn't want to get everyone worked up, but Riddle was already a part of the situation, and Yuya realized it might be helpful to have Riddle and Trey's good friend Cater on the case with them. He decided to share what the head mage had said. It's kind of a long story, Yuya said. Understood, Riddle nodded. In that case, we'll go to the lounge. It sounds like the matter might be complicated. I'll get the other students there to step out. The group quickly moved to the Hartslevel dorm lounge. This space was about the same size as Ramshackle's dorm lounge, but it was so lavish it didn't even begin to compare. Large fireplace, red damask patterned wallpaper, a leather crimson dyed sofa. The impression could have been old-fashioned, except half of the lounge was floor-to-ceiling windows, making the space feel more like a large sunroom. Yuya sat on the couch, which faced the windows, giving a good view of the garden's rose bushes. The sun had set, so the space was dark, but he thought it must be very pleasant at midday when the brilliant sun poured in through the generous windows. Grim reached out for the tea they were served, while Yuya told the group about their investigation thus far. By the time he finished, his own tea had cooled, and Grim's cup was empty. I see, Riddle said after a long silence. He and Cater both had the same hard look. I've heard from other housewardens about injured students in their houses, and I also find the number of injuries strange. I never imagined it was so serious, though. Only top players are getting in these accidents? Cater asked. Nothing natural about that. Plus, you of all people, Riddle, don't fall downstairs. Which means... Silence regained once again. Cater didn't have to finish his sentence. Everyone knew this string of injuries was no accident. Someone was targeting players. It was exactly what Yuya had feared. Oi, you okay? Ace asked. Yuya stared. Apparently he looked so upset his friends were worried. I'm fine, he said, shaking his head to ward off his faint-heartedness. He looked at Riddle sitting across from him. He wanted to ask more about the incident on the stairs. He needed all the details to have any hope of finding out what was really going on. But Yuya hadn't spoken with Riddle like this since the Overblot incident. They'd spoken briefly when Yuya had attended an unbirthday party held in celebration of Riddle's recovery. Riddle seemed completely back to his old self now. Cater described Riddle's vibe as much chiller, but he still seemed pretty stiff to Yuya. Yuya said finally, would you mind telling us what happened when you almost fell down the stairs? Not at all, Riddle replied. To be clear, it wasn't as if I had been pushing or that I had tripped, but I did feel a peculiar sensation like my body was moving of its own volition. The other victim said basically the same thing, Grim said, pulling a sour face. So you don't know how you almost got hurt, yeah? I want to know who did it. The nothing story's not getting me nowhere. It's true I can't identify the culprit, Riddle said, and I don't know the means used to cause me to fall down the stairs. But given the potential Spell Drive tournament players are being targeted, the motivation behind the attacks is quite clear. Riddle sipped his tea and returned his cup soundlessly to its saucer. Whoever is doing this is trying to remove would-be rivals from the tournament. After all, the whole world will be watching. No surprise that someone might resort to underhanded methods to even the odds. But couldn't it also be the work of someone who's got a bone to pick with the Spell Drive tournament? Deuce asked, his voice low. Maybe they hate the tournament so much they're trying to ruin it for everybody. If that's the case, they would select different targets, Riddle smiled coolly. You would target the planning committee, the sponsors, or even the head mage if you wanted to destroy the tournament itself. Or any of the many, many hopeful players if ability is not your main concern. Whether this would be possible or not is a different story. Oh, yeah, makes sense, Deuce agreed. So if the person is after guys who could be rivals in the tournament, Ace frowned thoughtfully, then slapped his knees. Oh, all I gotta do is find the dorm where no one's gotten hurt. Looks like our little mastermind already thought of that, Cater said. He looked up from his smartphone where he'd been scrolling through the college's social media app, Magicam. Just did a quick scroll through Magicam, and every dorm's had at least one accident. Probably a bit of cloaking dagger to keep anyone from catching on. Riddle's expression remained hard as he said, to start with, potential rivals aren't necessarily only members of other dorms. I think it's low on the scale of possibility, given that the prestige of the dorm is also at stake, but it could be that this dastardly culprit is going after players from his own dorm in order to secure a spot in the Spell Drive tournament himself. Oh, Riddle, no horror stories, please, Cater joked, but his eyes weren't laughing. No one wanted to believe that their own dorm mate, someone who was supposed to be on their side, would do something like this. And the more they talked, the longer the list of suspects grew. They considered a variety of factors, but they couldn't narrow the list of potential culprits down to a single person. Until they knew how the perpetrator was accomplishing their attacks, there were simply too many possibilities. Yuya was at wit's end when Riddle pronounced, to apprehend this culprit, we need to stay a step ahead of him. A step ahead? Grim asked and cocked his head. We're gonna do that how, exactly? By predicting which student will be targeted next and covertly following him, Riddle replied promptly. That way we can find out the culprit's methods, and we might just encounter this villain at the scene of the crime. They'd learned a lot about what was going on if they could get the jump on the perpetrator, and if they were lucky, they might be able to prevent someone from getting injured. Yuya thought it was a good idea, but he wasn't sure how he could help. I'm sorry, he said. I don't really know how anyone at the school. I have no idea who might be next. You just leave that to KK, Cater waggled his smartphone. I've got my finger on the pulse of every dorm when it comes to top players. With a music note, it's very important that you all know that there is a music note in this sentence. I'll keep you up to date on who's likely to get a beatdown. Cater knows everything about everyone, Riddle added. He's well informed about other dorms and even classes. Yuya figured if Riddle said so, then Cater probably did know everyone. Oh, you flatter me, Cater laughed, flashing a toothy smile. Okay, Grim said, looking at Yuya. So then all we gotta do is keep an eye on whoever this guy tells us to? Right, I guess so, Yuya agreed and nodded at the monster. Then he bowed to Riddle and Cater. Thank you both. We'll keep a close eye on these people and see if we can't find some sort of connection to the culprit. That's a surprise. So you're not freaked out? Ace asked, raising a dubious eyebrow. I mean, this is you we're talking about here, you. I figured you be all, leave me out of this, no fighting. I am scared, Yuya admitted, but I promised the head mage. And when I think about it, how Trey maybe wouldn't have been hurt if I'd figured this out already. It wasn't your fault, Riddle said. The blame's squarely on my shoulders. Yuya shook his head with firm resolve. No, it's awful that people are getting hurt at all. I need to solve this case as soon as possible. Even the normally apathetic Grim was eager to investigate, as his partner Yuya couldn't turn away as if this wasn't his problem. Plus, he couldn't stand the thought of constant fighting before the spell drive game. The idea haunted him. He wanted to resolve the situation immediately. Is that it? Riddle asked, rolling his eyes. Then he smiled and shrugged. Whatever the reason, I can see you're determined, Grim, I will assist you in the search for the culprit. Riddle, baby, we're so in sync, Cater exclaimed. I was about to say the same thing. And again, I must note to you all that there is a music note right there at the end of that sentence. That's a very important detail. That is a very, very important little thing that I need to address. Really? Yuya exclaimed and rose up in his seat at these declarations from Riddle and Cater. Cater glanced at Riddle before winking less than excitedly at Yuya. Well, it's not like we can sit back and watch when our housemates are being picked off. We're 100% here for you. Yuya thanked them repeatedly. It was extremely reassuring to have the upperclassmen join their team. Ace abruptly raised a hand, declaring, Okay, I'll help you too. What? Yuya cried out, even more shocked. I'll lend a hand too, Deuce chimed in. We gotta settle the score for Clover. You too, Deuce? Yuya stared hard at his friends. He couldn't believe this was the same Ace who had told him that very morning that he didn't want to help, and Deuce looked way more eager to get involved than before. It was more than simply a matter of getting revenge. Smells real fishy in here. Grim also eyed the pair dubiously. Nah, he said, shrugging nonchalantly. It's like a friend in need and all that, yeah? I get it, Cater grinned. You're gunning for that open spot on our team, aren't ya? So you're trying to show off to the house warden. Heh, was it that obvious? Ace readily admitted his ulterior motives, while Deuce shook his head vigorously back and forth. No, that has nothing to do with it. I just wanted to avenge our housemate, he cried, but his panic was tantamount to a confession. Honestly, Riddle shook his head in exasperation. To think I was impressed for a moment there. Well, fine. I suppose I could take your performance during the investigation into account. Yes, Ace and Deuce cried out, raising clenched fists. Yuya gave them a wry smile. Whatever their reasons, he was glad for their help. Okay, Grim threw his paws up into the air. Starting tomorrow, it's stakeout time. Right, we'll scout out the top players after school, Riddle said. Everyone nodded in agreement. That said, it's too dangerous to go alone. Whoever's behind this is a fiend capable of skillfully disguising his methods, and he's already hurt several students. Since there is a possibility of encountering this scoundrel, we'll work in pairs. Yuya admired how straightforward Riddle was. Since arriving in the lounge, everything he'd said had been persuasive and logical. Yuya took a sip of freshly poured tea, feeling grateful for his assistance. You're with me, Riddle said. Yuya felt his heart drop through his stomach. But also, Grim's not enough. I don't think Grim's quite enough. Huh? You with me? You repeated Riddle's words in shock. Do you mean you and I will investigate together? I do, Riddle nodded. It's the best combination. Huh? No, but, I can't use magic. I'll only be in your way. That's exactly why you'll team up with me. I have the greatest understanding of magic and the school, so the optimal strategy is for me to work with you and supplement your knowledge. But I think I'd be just as okay with someone else, Yuya suggested. Cater will pair with Grim. Riddle raised one finger after another as he explained dispassionately. Cater works well with essentially everyone, and he's more than capable of smoothing over any instability in Grim's behavior. Ace and Deuce have work to do in the dorms, so they can do that and investigate at the same time. Upperclassmen are busy preparing for the spell drive tournament, so our first-year students necessarily have an increased workload. Riddle was making sense, and he spoke with unyielding assurance. Yuya felt the urge to cradle his head in his hands. He and Riddle had barely spoken recently, and the conversations they'd had before weren't exactly friendly. Now he was going to be alone with him? How was he supposed to act? He couldn't chat casually with him the way he did with Ace and Deuce, nor did he imagine Riddle acting friendly with him like he was with Trey and Cater. Do you have some objection? Riddle looked at him curiously, seemingly unaware that Yuya might be feeling uncomfortable. In fact, Yuya was afraid of Riddle. Was always afraid of Riddle. But this was different from when they had first met, and everyone simply called Riddle a tyrant. Yuya had seen Riddle in the middle of an overblot. He had no idea a human being could hold within themselves such anger and sadness that it would manifest in such a huge, destructive monster that had practically leveled the Heartstable Garden. Yuya devoted himself to avoiding conflict and pursuing peace, and Riddle was too fierce for him to understand. On the other hand, Yuya figured Riddle probably didn't think much of anything about him. It seemed that only Yuya felt awkward at the thought of being alone with Riddle. He looked to Ace and Deuce for help, but they simply shrugged. Sorry, man, Ace mouthed silently. Deuce's expression said he seemed set. Panicked, Yuya turned to Grim beside him on the sofa. The monster was happily stuffing his face with cookies, which had been set out with the tea, blissfully ignorant of everyone else. Cater gave him a pained smile. Well, this is a whole thing, huh? Cater mused, then turned to Riddle. But if this is how you want to cut the cake... Riddle nodded firmly, and Cater's smile became more pained. He looked at you and winked as if to say there was nothing else to do. Probably the best combo after all, he said. I mean, we gotta keep you safe, Yui. Plus, the whole operation will run smoothly this way. You leave Grimmy to me. Excellent, Riddle said, clapping his hands. So there are no objections? Well, here we go then, Grim said. Grim and the Greater just have to keep Cater in line. Oh, Grimmy, Grim Bob, Grim Jim, Grimmy Grandma. All right. All right, roger that, Ace agreed enthusiastically. He had no doubt been smirking the whole time, entertained by the idea of Yuya and Riddle teaming up. Then it's time to be on our way, Riddle declared. All of you make sure to rest up in preparation for tomorrow. They decided on a time and a place to meet the following day, and the strategy meeting came to an end. Things were moving in a positive direction, but the flustered Yuya nonetheless left Heartstable with a heavy heart. And that is the end of chapter 4. I never really thought about it because in the game it just kind of gets overlooked, I think, how impacted Yuya is, how impacted Yu is by the overblots. Because, we just go from, one thing to the next thing. And in-game, our characters just kind of yeah, that sucked. I wish I can go home. Man, it'd be nice if I can go home now. And then that's kind of it. We don't ever get to see much of the inner workings of Yu. We never really get to see their inner struggles or their inner fights or any of that sort of stuff. And so I really like the novel's ability to bring that out. And help us see a little bit more of what is going on in those cases. And even the conversation with Vil here was kind of nice to have. We don't typically get that sort of stuff. And again, in the game, I don't think we got it from Vil either. I can't fully remember if we talked to Vil or not in that scene. I think we just talked to, the kid. I think we just talked to the kiddo that got hurt, and then we go and do a couple other people, and then we know that Trey is hurt. But this is a very interesting book so far. I feel like that's a good place to end it for tonight. I kind of want to do one more chapter, but I also kind of want to rest my voice because it's been a little bit. I like the story. I like that we're getting bits and pieces of things that we don't get context for. We already have, a whole bunch of context for Ruggy. We know where Ruggy comes from. We know why he is hanging out with Leona. There's a whole bunch of information in that vein that we now have that does not get explained at all in the game. And then gets kind of brushed on in the manga in visual format, which is just as effective, I think. as it was in the writing here. And I'm sure that we will get more of that the more that we go into the story. But like those aspects are nice. I don't really remember the first novel, so I don't really. I'm also gonna stop the subtitles because I'm not reading anymore. I probably should have done that before. What was I saying? Oh, I don't really remember Hartzlebel's novel all that well. If I'm being completely honest, I don't fully remember how that one went. But this one feels way, way poorer written. The writing in the few chapters that we've gotten to just feels so not great. And I don't know what the reading level is supposed to be for these novels. I assume it is for younger folks because Twisted Wonderland is geared at a younger audience. But there is so much needless repetition of things that like we just said or just discovered. Like what did it say? It was something about, it was recent too, where it was like 2 reasons, and then Deuce was like, yeah, that's so bad that it was 2 reasons. Like there's so much repetition within the text, and I don't understand where it's coming from. There's so many things that get explained to us, and then we immediately re-explain them, and it bothers me a lot. It bothers me a lot. Yeah, it feels poorer, because I don't remember having that same critique for Hartzlebel, although, again, like I said, I don't really remember it. But I did turn the captions off. I did. Should I turn them back on for my rambling? I had them on specifically for the novel, but I can turn them back on for the rambling. Also, probably should have made a note at the time when I started rambling to be able to make the conclusion. But you know, that's how it goes. Yeah, the writing feels off. It almost makes me think that they ran some of the translation potentially, allegedly, perhaps not by a person. And that may be where some of the really weird sentence structure is coming from. Because there's also, like, the way that it's getting some of the writing across is odd to me, because they're like interjecting details in the middle of sentences in a way that completely removes the context of the sentence. Like you're reading it, and then it's like, and then the mirror chamber was also for the 7 dorms because the 7 dorms not ramshackle, and then you get like 2 words at the end that relate to what was happening there's just like a better way to organize a lot of the sentence structures that are in this particular novel. And it's bothering me when I'm reading it. Like, as I was reading it, I just felt drained. I was like, why are we talking about how the mirror chamber has mirrors in it for the 17th time? That's just kind of how it feels. There are good bits of it, and there are nice bits of context, but the writing overall is feeling really weird to me. Translation errors aside. Which, it doesn't seem like there's too many actual translation errors. It just seems like the grammar and the way that they're putting the sentences together is just not great. And as I'm reading it, there are some things that I can understand to being more directly translated from Japanese due to the way that those sentence structures are. But it's a little bizarre. It's a little bizarre to me. I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that I think a proofreader would have been able to catch that I'm just a little disappointed with. But it is what it is. It is printed. God only, I don't think that they'll ever probably go back and re-release it. But, you know, maybe, perhaps. I also have a feeling that they may have rushed the novelization, the translations, because they're probably going to bring out the anime season 2 sometime soon this year. Perhaps. So if they're trying to get ahead of it, then I can understand. But they also, the release schedule of all of the novels and mangas has been so bizarre. Like we got book 2, we got books 1 and 2 of Octavanel. We have books 1 and 2 of Savanaclaw. There's pre-orders for the first book of Scarabia, but neither Savanaclaw nor Octavanel have been completed yet. So I'm like, what is happening? I stopped on chapter 5. Chapter 5 is the next chapter that we were going to read. So we only got through 4 chapters. So sorry for that, but it's sucking the life out of me a little bit. And also I know by the time that we finish the next chapter, it's going to be a little too late. Yeah, I'm interested to see where this goes. I'm interested to see how it is. I mean, you don't think that they will release it that quickly? I said sometime this year. I don't think it's gonna be like soon, but I do think that they're gonna release the season 2 this year, because from what I feel like they did is that they worked on season 1 and 2 kind of congruently, and then maybe they're getting like the voices and stuff for season 3. Because I don't know why I feel this way. I think it might just be because of the interview between Major Attaway and Paul Castro, where Major Attaway was talking about how the voice direction kept trying to push him to be more nonchalant for a majority of the things. Which I don't know why, but that gave me the vibe that they already recorded a lot of the stuff for season 2, at least voice-wise. Because Leona does not have that many speaking lines in season 1. I don't know, man. I don't know how that works. I don't know how it goes on behind the scenes. And I know that they were working on season 1 like a whole year before it released anyway. So, like, because the voice actors have known for a very, very long time, right? Because they had been working on the project for a long time. So, I think it would be coming out sometime this year would be my guess, but I don't know when. It could be later in the year. It could be like they release it how Hearthstable was, right, in October, and they just keep releasing them in October and keeping it consistent that way. I feel like that's probably the most reasonable, probably the most probable. I do hope that they inject it with a lot more of like those Ruggy flashbacks of Ruggy's childhood and things of that nature to give us more of that visual context as to why people are doing the things that they're doing, because book 2 suffers a lot in the game via lack of context, and that's the problem. It lacks a lot of context for character motivations, for all that sort of stuff, for why the characters, like, it bothers me. It took me like an entire year of just thinking about Leona to realize why he hated Malleus and to realize what was happening in there. But it took me to reading the manga to understand why Ruggy did anything. So as long as they keep that sort of context in the anime, it should be fine. It should be fine. It should at least be better than the game version. And I think that this novel is going to be better than the game version as well. So, I don't know. I think it'll all work out in the end. Perhaps. It took me an entire year. And I vividly remember when I figured it out, too, because I was on the phone with my father while out in the garden. And I was talking about how I still didn't understand Leona. And then all of a sudden, like talking through, I was like, oh, that's why. That's why he was doing the thing, and that's why he got pissed off, and that's why he wanted to take Malleus out himself, even though he's doing the exact same thing as what Crowley said he was going to do, except Leona's committing felonies while also doing what he could have just had done because of Crowley. Yeah, no, it took me a very long time. It took me a very, very long time. And I still felt like I didn't fully understand. I probably still don't fully understand. But at least I understand better what his feelings and motivations are. And I'm at least glad now that I get where Ruggy's coming from. Because, good lord, that was so confusing for so long. I was like, why are you even why are you committing felonies on this guy's behalf, right? Because there's no establishment of like why they are together other than he's the hyena and he's the lion and Lion King go burr. Like, in the game, there's absolutely no development of their relationship or the context behind why they're doing things or anything. So that's a fun time. That's a lovely time. It's a good time. Are you related to Leona? So that's, you understood him and oh, yeah. Yeah, I think the characters that you relate to are a little bit easier to understand. Like, again, I had no idea where he was coming from. I understand his, like, mental space, because I also feel like I, you know, have some similar thought patterns, or at least I have in the past. So, like, I get that aspect. I just couldn't wrap my head around, like, his actual full motivations. You can really, yeah, see, but you don't have to like who you relate to. You don't have to like the characters you relate to. Relating to Edie is a fine time. Edie is also just a silly little bean, you know? It happens. It happens. But it'll be interesting to see what they do. I don't know. And it'll be interesting to see how the novel progresses. I doubt the writing will get any better. The writing's probably gonna stay the same. But it'll be interesting at least to have a little bit more context, to have a little bit more going on, to know a little bit more about the people and all that sort of stuff. But we'll have to figure that out next week. Book 7's never getting animated. Yeah, I don't know how they're gonna handle any of that. Maybe maybe book 7 is like 7 different seasons. Like who's to say? Who's to say how that's gonna go? But regardless, we're gonna talk about more Savanaclaw stuff next week. However, tomorrow we're gonna have a lovely little Valentine's themed community night where we take some Valentine's-y quizzes and we do some other things that are more or less related, perhaps, to the holiday. And it should be a fun time. I hope it's gonna be a fun time. Oh, they could make it a movie. They could just make book 7 a movie. They could just do that. Yeah, that'd be kind of wild. It'd be like a 5-hour movie. But hey, you know, it'll be fine. But yeah, so community night tomorrow. So if you all have time, if you don't have plans for the lovely holiday, you can come hang out with me instead, if you so choose to, for a little bit, or for a lot of it, or for none of it. It's up to you. But OVAs for the dreams. I don't know. I don't know that they would do OVAs for the dreams. Maybe the way that book 7 works is that we have like a montage of getting everybody to the Overblotter's dream, and then we go through the Overblotter. Maybe. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, more effectively, sort of something along those lines. I'm everybody's Valentine's date platonically. That's how that works. I'm everybody's Galentine's pal, or however that goes. And all of that fun stuff. But yeah. So that's tomorrow. So if you want to do that, come hang out tomorrow. If you want more Savanaclaw, come hang out next week. And then Wednesday will probably be Bunny Boy. I'm assuming because the joint exams end on Tuesday that Wednesday will be Bunny Boy, and I am so excited for Bun Boy. Oh yeah, Glorious Masquerade could be a movie pretty easily. The problem with that one, I think, and the problem with a lot of the events, is that the beginning drags a lot, and then the momentum kicks in later. I don't know. But we'll see. And I will be seeing you all tomorrow. So, if you are going to be going to sleep, have a wonderful sleep. If you are going to be having a day, have a wonderful day, and I will see you in the next one. Night's blessings. Bye-bye.